What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 2JM. Chapter 26 Emergency. 500 Hostages. Advertisement. Under the night, a huge three-masted sailing warship is sailing on the sea, and the Justice Seagull flag, hanging high on the main mast flutters in the wind, highlighting the identity of Marine. Boo 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 boo. Click. In the captain's room, the phone rang a few times before being connected. I'm Sengoku. It's me, Crane. Crane calmly picked up the microphone of the phone bug, and heard a familiar voice coming from the microphone. It was Admiral from Naval Headquarters, a man known as Sengoku of Buddha and the resourceful General Sengoku. Where are you guys? Sengoku asked. Did something happen? We have left the sea area of the Lubni Kingdom and are going to return directly to the headquarters. Crane replied. Just received the news from the world government that the port of the Kingdom of Tobias, one of North Blue's allied countries, was attacked by pirates. The attackers are villain pirates. The captain, villain, Ma Noel Kubi has a bounty of 3,700 won baili. Can you reach the Kingdom of Tobias in one day? Sengoku said directly. Kingdom of Tobias. Crane squinted his eyes when he heard the familiar name, and said in a deep voice, I remember that branch 201 is nearby, and we should be able to arrive within a day. What happened? According to the informant, the villainous pirate group is suspected to have a channel to buy arms, equipped with a large number of artillery, mortars and other weapons, with extremely high firepower, so they defeated the army of the Kingdom of Tobias and took 500 soldiers as hostages. Their lives were threatened to force the king to abdicate, and they were only given one day to think about it. Sengoku explained. I checked the 201 branch, and there are only 800 sailors, 1 third-class warship and 2 fourth-class warships. Even if the warship goes there, it won't be able to drive away those pirates. I understand, but it's a pity that my sailing direction is opposite to the Tobias Kingdom's position. It will take at least 4 or 5 days of sailing, and it's too late. He said calmly. That's right, forget it, leave it to the world government. Sengoku said, and then hung up the phone with a click. Hearing the beeping sound from the microphone, Crane also put down the microphone in his hand, looked up at the huge chart hanging on the opposite wall, and muttered to himself, Kingdom of Tobias. Tay Cross. A few hours ago. Kingdom of Tobias port. Run, the pirates are coming. Leave quickly, or you will die. Help, please help me. Advertisement. Where is Master Cross? Help us. Quote. Cannonballs flew through the sky, making sharp piercing sounds, and then fell on the docks and the city of the port, bursting out with deafening roars. The raging fire quickly burned in the city, dispelling the darkness of the night, forming a spectacular scene like burning clouds. People fled desperately in panic, and all kinds of shrill and desperate cries were heard endlessly. Hundreds of pirates with vicious expressions set foot on the land, holding up their knives and guns, and wantonly rushed into this peaceful port city. Little ones, don't worry about it, just kill as much as you want. Kill all the resistors, don't show mercy. Quote. Villain QB waved the large caliber flintlock pistol in his hand, laughing wildly as he looked at the chaotic city in front of him. Don't back down, protect this country from pirates. Let's go together and drive the pirates out. Quote. In the city, thousands of royal troops who came to defend against the enemy fought with hundreds of pirates. The fierce shouts of killing and the roar of guns were intertwined, as if playing a symphony of the loss of life. It's a pity that although the kingdom's army, which has been in peace for a long time, is brave, it is still slightly inferior to the pirates who have been fighting at sea all year round. But adhering to the duty of protecting the country, the soldiers of the royal army faced the frantic attack of the pirates and made a firm resistance, which made the battle fall into a fierce stage from the very beginning. Every hour, people continue to fall to the ground and die. Push our cannons up and blow them up. Villain QB yelled with a grin, his dark red curvy beard swaying endlessly. Soon, 10 cannons were pushed up by the gunners among the pirates and aimed at the follow-up formation of the royal army. Fire! An order came. Call out. There was a sharp whistling sound in the air, and the flag of the kingdom on the top of the castle was hit by a shell. There was a loud boom, and countless gravels splashed, alarming the soldiers of the kingdom army below the castle. Advertisement. Damn pirate, someone yelled angrily. However, in the next second, more shells flew over, and with the sharp howling sound of shoo shoo shoo, they landed on the street in an instant. Boom, 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 boom. Immediately, violent explosions continued one after another, and the blazing flames exploded one after another. The soldiers of the royal army on the street were killed and injured countless times in the shelling. In the face of the artillery of the god of land warfare, it is impossible for ordinary people's mortal bodies to resist, and the soldiers of the royal army have no room to fight back. In a short while, the streets were covered with the broken corpses of the soldiers of the royal army, and the wailing wounded. There were stumps and broken arms everywhere. The blood had already flowed into streams. It was almost a slaughterhouse for Shura. It's actually a mortar. A soldier of the royal army who was blown away by the blast shouted angrily. Ha 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 ha, that's it, bastards. Villain QB laughed and said, those who want to survive should surrender obediently, and those who resist should be blown up with mortars. All I saw was that the violent shelling blew up the formation of the royal army, killed and injured many people, and completely disintegrated the morale of the royal army. Their kingdom has been in peace for a long time, and their armaments have been lax. They have only a dozen cannons, most of which are placed in palaces and castles. The only few in the coastal port cities are destroyed by the opponent's naval guns. Only relying on swords and muskets, it is impossible to fight against the fierce mortar fire. What's more, these soldiers of the royal army have never seen such a cruel and bloody scene. If we can't win, we can't win. A soldier of the royal army showed despair, knelt on the ground powerlessly, and the long sword in his hand fell to the ground with a jingle. Soon, one person's actions caused a chain reaction. The remaining soldiers of the royal army looked at each other, and they all threw their weapons on the ground weakly, kneeling down and surrendering. Ha 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 ha, these guys are all hostages, pass the level and go to curry. Villain QB laughed wildly, waved the pirates under his banner to step forward, and arrested all the soldiers of the royal army who surrendered. Captain, the plan can begin. A pirate shouted excitedly. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Villain QB looked wildly, looked around triumphantly at the houses and buildings burning raging fire, and said with a wild laugh, hurry up and send someone to inform the king of this country, and tell him that if you want these people to live, you must be honest. Abdicate and give me the throne for one day, otherwise I will kill all the hostages and break into the palace. Chapter 27 The Messenger of the World Government. Advertisement. Also under the darkness, the battleship, Harwich 19, sailed quietly on the sea. The captain's room was lit, and Cross, who looked like a mummy, sat at the desk, opened a blank diary, dipped a quill pen in ink, and prepared to write down the experiences of these days. After all, just as I was about to go to sea, I got a devil fruit, and as soon as I went to sea, I got a famous knife and fought a small boss, which is really worth recording. However, when Cross just wrote down the date, he suddenly remembered something and couldn't help but said to himself, Maid, who is a serious person who keeps a diary. Boom boom boom, boom boom boom. Suddenly, there was a hasty knock on the door. What's wrong? With a strange expression on his face, Cross calmly put down the quill and closed the diary again. The next second, General Humir's panicked voice came from outside the door. Count Cross, are you asleep? Count Cross, wake up quickly, something serious happened. Crunch. Cross frowned, quickly got up from the armchair, walked quickly to the door, and opened it. As a result, as soon as the door was opened, General Humir, with an anxious expression on his face, grabbed both of Cross's arms and said in a surprised voice, something has happened, the kingdom's port was attacked by pirates, and the kingdom's army that went to suppress it a big defeat, not only hundreds of people were killed and injured, but also 500 people were captured. Nani? Cross widened his eyes and said in shock, General Hummel, are you joking? It's this time, how could I be joking? General Humir was a little anxious, but he still explained. The firepower of that group of pirates is extremely strong. Not only the royal army was defeated, but even the 2 warships parked in the port were defeated. They were all destroyed by the other party's pirate ship, and the entire port has completely fallen into the hands of the pirates. His Majesty the King and Minister Saleen summoned the guards and the remaining soldiers of the royal army, and stood firm in the kingdom castle. However, that group of pirates put forward a condition, threatening the lives of 500 royal army soldiers to force His Majesty the King to abdicate. The hostage of 500 royal army soldiers. This plot seems familiar. Cross looked puzzled, as if thinking of something. Afterwards, he took a closer look at General Humir. He had brown skin, scars on his face, a black forehead band and a white turban on his head. What do you see me doing? General Humil had a puzzled expression on his face, not understanding why Cross was staring at him in such an urgent situation. Cross blinked involuntarily, did not speak, and recalled the appearance of Minister Timur Saleen in his mind, and then searched out an anime clip of One Piece from his long past life memory, accompanied by a familiar names came to his mind. Advertisement. Rob Lucci. Cross whispered to himself. What? General Humir didn't understand what Cross said, but he didn't care because he cared about the country. He just asked anxiously, Count Cross, can you speed up the sailing and get back to the kingdom within a day? 1 day. I don't know, but I can give it a try. Cross looked at the wooden wall of the captain's cabin, and said slowly, after all, this ship has come to life, and the mastery of wind and current requires a lot of effort. Much higher than human manipulation. Then prepare with full sail and sail with all your might. On the evening of the 2nd day. Kingdom of Tobias Palace Castle. Your Majesty, those nasty pirates actually used the lives of the hostages as a condition to threaten His Majesty the King to abdicate. It is really despicable. In the spacious hall, the minister of the kingdom, Saleen, changed from his usual expressionless face, and shouted angrily, it's too much to give us a 1-day time limit. We have already spent a whole day to appease the panicked people, and now we only have 1 night left. Have you contacted the world government? Harwich 19 sat on the throne, sighed with his hands on his forehead, with a painful expression on his face. I contacted them in the morning. They said they would send members of the CP organization closest to the kingdom to deal with it. Let us wait patiently, but there is no news yet. Sarin replied. Damn it. Harwich 19 cursed helplessly, and said with some regret, if I knew this kind of thing would happen, I shouldn't have let Earl Cross go to sea, otherwise, this kind of thing would never have happened. Your Majesty, none of us would like such a thing to happen. Saleen said reassuringly, what's more, we never thought that the firepower of these pirates would be so powerful. They defeated our 2 warships and defeated the royal army with mortars on land, the enemy is too powerful. Oh, Harwich 19 sighed and asked, did you contact General Humir? When will they come back? Last night after the pirates Attack. I contacted them, but the Lubny Kingdom is 3 days away from us, so it's too late. Sauron said helplessly. King Harwich covered his face and said in a muffled voice, there is no other way, it seems that we can only. Your Majesty, for the sake of the people, you should resolutely reject this despicable request from the pirates. Sauron's face was solemn, and he interrupted Harwich XIX's words, and said in a deep voice, the rest of the royal army plus the strength of the guards, there is no need to be afraid of those pirates. Advertisement. But the soldiers who fought with their lives and became hostages out of helplessness are also my people. I can't just watch them die like this. Harwich XIX said painfully. But, Sauron said movedly. At this time, Harwich XIX raised his head, with a free and easy expression on his face, and said with a smile, even if this throne is taken away, there is still a chance to take it back, but human life is not like this. His Majesty. Salim gritted his teeth, and said in a deep voice, but even if we accept the pirates' request, I don't think they will release the hostages honestly. Bang. Suddenly, the gate of the palace hall was pushed open, and an attendant rushed in, panting loudly, Your Majesty, the envoy of the world government has just arrived. Salim suddenly turned his head to look, showing a surprised expression. Is it, from the world government? Harwich XIX also said with a happy face, let him in quickly. Obey. Just as the attendant responded with a straight face, a figure appeared behind him and walked straight into the hall of the palace. Child. Harwich XIX looked at the figure and couldn't help being taken aback. Hateful. Sauron gritted his teeth and said, the world government is actually teasing us like this. I saw that this figure was actually a thin black-haired boy, wearing a black suit, with a cold and indifferent expression, and his immature face looked smaller than Cross. Where is the prey? The black-haired boy asked indifferently. Chapter 28 Rob Lucci at 13. Advertisement. Prey. Minister Salim frowned, and asked doubtfully, you mean the pirates? They have occupied the western port as a stronghold. Harwich XIX said quickly. I see. The black-haired boy nodded, and said in a flat tone, then leave the rest of the matter to me. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-haired boy turned and left. Wait a moment. Harwich XIX stood up from the throne, and said with a serious face, please put the safety of the hostages first, please. As this giving advice to the world government? The black-haired boy turned his back to the king and ministers, turned his head slightly, and asked in a cold voice. In an instant, the black-haired boy narrowed his eyes, and a cold murderous aura erupted from himself. Harwich XIX's expression changed, and he sweated profusely. He said in horror, what is the coercion emanating from this young man? Murderous. What about the comments? Suddenly, a crisp voice came from outside the gate. Even if it is a world government, can't people ask for opinions? Tread. Tap. Tap. Everyone in the palace hall looked out of the gate one after another. With the sound of clear footsteps, a figure emerged from the dark corridor of the palace, and soon walked into the brightly lit palace hall. Earl Cross. Seeing the visitor, Harwich XIX and Minister Salim both cried out in surprise. Your Majesty, Lord Salim, good evening. Cross walked to the side of the black-haired boy, and greeted the king and ministers in front of him politely. Advertisement. Count Cross, it would be great if you could hurry back, but, are you, all right? Suddenly, Harwich XIX saw the white bandages on Cross's body, he couldn't help being taken aback, and asked rather worriedly. Cross tugged at the black-bottomed blue-striped coat on his upper body, and chuckled nonchalantly, I just met a difficult guy, and it's all flesh and blood injuries. I'll recover after a few days of rest. By the way, General Humir is inspecting the army outside, saying that it is to prevent pirates from stealing. Hey, did you say what you just said? The black-haired boy interrupted Cross, and looked at Crosso blankly. Oh, do you have any opinions? Cross turned his head, with a contemptuous expression on his face, and said, the world government is composed of more than 170 countries, and the kingdom of Tobias is one of them. You little devil, why do you treat the king of a country like this? Offended. Believe it or not, I will kill you on the spot, and the world government will not have any opinion. The black-haired boy squinted his eyes, didn't speak, just stared at Cross. Cross was also not afraid, and still looked at the boy in front of him with disdain. That's right, the black-haired boy in front of Cross is exactly the Rob Lucci in the original plot, who was called Cipher Pole Number 9, the strongest ruthless, killing weapon, in history by the secret cipher pole directly under the world government. Also considered to be CP9, the strongest in 800 years. This guy relied on this mission to kill 500 hostage soldiers, and killed the pirate captain who caused the accident, and solved the crisis of the kingdom alone, so he died at the age of 13. Entered open black lens bracket CP9 close black lens bracket. And his reason for killing 500 soldiers was, these soldiers were caught by pirates so easily, which led to the crisis of the country, so maybe the same thing will happen in the future. Treating weakness as a SN, advocating necessary evil, and pursuing dark justice, is the boy in front of him, Rob Lucci. However, since Cross lives in this country, it is natural that 500 hostages will not be killed. In the palace hall, two underage teenagers confronted each other. The collision of strong aura and cold murderous aura made the atmosphere extremely depressing. Whether it was King Harwich XIX or the attendant who just came in, they couldn't help but face each other. Lou was frightened, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Perhaps in other words, these two underage teenagers can determine the direction of the country. Insult to the world government, court death. After a while, Rob Lucci's eyes became more and more dangerous. After announcing the verdict to Cross coldly, he raised his hand without hesitation, and quickly stabbed the latter's chest with his right index finger. Snapped. Advertisement. However, in an instant, when Cross raised his hand, he grabbed Lu Chi's wrist like lightning, preventing the opponent from attacking an inch, and a gust of wind visible to the naked eye arose between the two. How is this possible? Lu Chi was stunned. He didn't expect that the boy in front of him, who was a few years younger than himself, could actually block his attack. His strength was so great that he couldn't even withdraw his hand. The stabbing with your fingers is to gather all the strength of your body on the index finger, and use the hardened finger to release a blow. The power is enough to pierce the flesh, comparable to bullets. It's a good move. Is there any more? Squinting his eyes, he could see through the opponent's moves at a glance, and asked with more interest. There is one thing to say. He has been greedy for 6 styles for a long time, but he is only a minor in a small country after all, and he is a person who has not experienced much in the world, so he can only pretend not to know, and deliberately lure the other party to perform other 6 styles. So see if you can take the opportunity to learn a trick or two. At this time, Lu Chi's indifferent expression changed. He frowned and looked at Cross in front of him, and couldn't help but said, "You actually saw through finger pistol. This trick is called finger pistol, a very vivid name." Cross nodded, deliberately pretending to know it for the first time, and then said with a smile, "Then look at the finger pistol I just learned. Is it any different from your open black lens bracket finger pistol close black lens bracket?" As soon as the words fell, Cross let go of Lu Chi's wrist, then raised his right hand, raised his index finger in front of the other party, and stabbed forward like lightning. Due to the length of his arms, he stabbed like a spear. You actually learned it after reading it once. Lu Chi was stunned, and subconsciously controlled his body to dodge, narrowly dodging Cross' finger pistol attack. Seeing this scene, Cross grinned happily, and poked at the opponent several times with finger pistol. Paper arts. Lu Chi quickly dodges, and every time he can dodge at the nick of time, but he can't help but say in his heart, it's actually true. It's really true. This guy really learned how to do it just by reading it finger pistol close black lens bracket. This is also a move, take off all the strength of the whole body, and dodge with the change of airflow produced by the opponent's movements. Cross poked Lu Chi in front of him with his fingers, and carefully observed Lu Chi's evasive movements, muttering words in his mouth. "TCH, I don't believe you can learn everything." Lu Chi's face changed slightly. He stepped back suddenly, and jumped a few meters away to stand firm, then raised his leg and swept outward, directly using the powerful force of his leg to roll up the air in front of him, forming a sharp slash from the void burst out. Tempest Kick. Chapter 29 Overwhelming Strength. Advertisement. The blue and white slash hit head on, and the fierce wind almost made Cross feel pain in his cheeks, but he couldn't help but smile, and said to himself, although I can't see through the way of force, it's just like you swordsman's slash is really an interesting move. Kanglang. Before it was too late, Cross decisively pulled out the Jingsho knife from his waist, and slashed out in the way of Juhei's slash, directly slashing on the incoming slash. Clang. Amidst the sound like the clanging of gold and iron, the blue and white slash was cut in half on the spot, and then turned into a little bit of starlight, dissipating in the air. Unexpectedly, Lu Chi's face darkened. He was surprised that Cross shattered his own slash, and guessed again in his heart, the one who used the knife, is this guy already a swordsman? But at this moment, Cross actually took the initiative to attack, stepped a few meters away with one lunge, appeared in front of Lu Chi almost face to face, and punched out. Fist. Lu Chi was a little dazed. He didn't expect that a swordsman would beat someone with his fist instead of a sword. Iron body. At that moment, Lu Chi let out a low cry, got off his horse and stood still. A gleam of light that was hard to see with the naked eye flashed all over his body, and his muscles tensed. Bang. Cross directly punched Lu Chi in the chest, and the powerful force poured out unreservedly, causing the latter to let out a groan. His body moved backwards involuntarily, and his feet plowed 2 holes on the ground. Shallow traces. At the same time, a strong wind spread, kicking up a cloud of dust in the palace hall. What a heavy fist. It feels like my bones are about to burst. Lu Chi half kneeled on the ground, covering his chest with one hand, and whispered in pain. At this moment, Cross looked at his fist, recalled the feeling of touch just now, and said to himself, a move that will make the body percent hard, it is as hard as iron. If it is replaced by ordinary people with a sword, I'm afraid it will shatter the sword. However, the movement method of this move is in the body, so I don't see any tricks for the time being. Who is this guy? Lu Chi rubbed his aching chest, stood up slowly, and secretly guessed. Obviously I am a Superman who has mastered the 6 forms of training through hell, but I can't stop this guy's fist, it's simply incomprehensible. At this moment, Harwich the 19th and Minister Saleen watched the fight between the two, and were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. It's like a joke for 2 underage children to have such great strength. Advertisement. However, Harwich 19th reacted quickly, looked at Rob Lu Chi angrily, and said angrily, stop. You are not an envoy sent by the world government. How dare you wantonly attack the nobles in the kingdom? If you don't take my Tobias kingdom seriously, I will definitely complain to the world government about you. Lu Chi glanced at Harwich 19, but ignored him. Because from what he saw, the so-called king was just a bad old man, and as an agent of the CP organization, he was doing dirty work behind the scenes, and he didn't care about any complaints at all. So the other party's intimidation is not as threatening as the man in front of him. Shave. The next moment, Lu Chi suddenly disappeared in place, or disappeared in the eyes of a few ordinary people. Then when it reappeared, it had already arrived at Cross's side as if teleported, and punched Cross's head. But in the next second, a hand pressed on Lucci's face like lightning, and before Lucci could react, he slammed him down on the ground. Boom. The head hit the stone floor, like a hammer hitting the ground, smashing the ground on the spot, almost sinking the whole head into the ground, and the powerful force even cracked more than a dozen pieces of the surrounding stone slabs. The way of moving is good and the speed is very fast, but it's useless to me. Cross stood up slowly and said in a flat tone. Harwich 19th and Minister Saline were astonished. They only felt a blur in front of their eyes, and then one of them lay on the ground. The two couldn't help but rub their eyes, and took a closer look to make sure that they were not dazzled. I kept my hands back, and you have a move to harden your body, so you didn't suffer any injuries at all. Get up quickly. Cross put the Jingsho knife in his hand back into its sheath, and said to Lucci who was lying on the ground. Immediately, Lucci put his hands on the ground, forcefully pulled his head out of the broken ground, and stood up a little dizzy. You are courting death for attacking officials of the world government. Lucci covered his head with an ugly face, threatening in a ferocious tone. The battle just now made him understand that he was no match for this guy in front of him at all. That powerful force can't even be defended by iron body, and the speed of shaved can be accurately captured. If the opponent uses a knife in his hand instead of a fist, I'm afraid he has already been chopped down on the ground up. But, why does this country have such a powerful presence, and still ask the world government to send someone to deal with a group of pirates who only use hostages to threaten others? Stop talking. At this time, Cross said bluntly, Your Majesty the King asked the world government to send someone to deal with this pirate invasion incident because I was not in the country. Now that I have rushed back, you will help me solve this incident. As for how you report when you go back, that's your business. But if you dare to mess around with this matter, I'll hack you to death. Advertisement. Under the night, a huge three-masted sailing pirate ship was parked in the west port, and next to it were two smaller warships, but they were already dilapidated, only half of the hull tilted out of the sea, while the other half sank seabed. You guys have done a good job. Eat, drink and be merry to your heart's content today, indulge yourself. On the deck, the pirates were happily having a banquet, and villain QB sat on the main seat, triumphantly speaking loudly to his subordinates. The kingdom of Tobias is nothing special. That's right, now the whole kingdom is ours. Long live the boss. What? It should be called the new king. Really? Ha 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 ha. Serve the wine. There's not enough wine. It's the same here, who's going to get some? Quote. The pirates shouted happily, exchanging cups and playing with the gold and silver objects they had stolen. Villain QB gulped down a large glass of beer and laughed excitedly. Today's wine is really delicious, ha ha ha. You, who is the captain of this group? Suddenly, a strange and indifferent question sounded, interrupting the pirates' banquet. The pirates on the deck stopped what they were doing and turned to look at this strange black-haired boy. Who are you? The villain QB, who was sitting on the main seat, looked at the child in front of him and asked. A bounty of 37 million Baileys is offered, villain Ma Noel QB, I arrest you in the name of world government. The black-haired boy said with a cold expression and a cold tone. Chapter 30 Killing and Rescue. Advertisement. World government. Hearing this, villain QB's face changed slightly, and then a disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha, arrest me. Is it just for a brat like you? It seems the world government is really short of manpower. Really? Don't make people laugh. Ha ha ha, what can a child do? If you want to play official games, go elsewhere. Get out, we don't have time to play with children. Ha ha ha, it's really funny. Go away, before you get hurt. Quote. The pirates around laughed loudly, mocking the black-haired boy in front of him. Call out. Bang. Suddenly, there was a sharp and strange whistling sound, like the sound of friction between objects in the air under rapid flight. In the next second, a huge explosion occurred at the tail of the pirate ship, and the scorching flames shot up into the sky, causing the entire pirate ship to vibrate violently, and everyone on the deck was caught off guard and fell down one after another. On the ground, all kinds of tables, chairs and benches also fell, and the dishes and drinks placed on them all spilled on the ground. What happened? Is there a sneak attack? The explosion was at the stern. There are ships attacking us at sea. Who is it? The army of the kingdom of Tobias. Quote. The pirates panicked and ran around the deck in all directions. Sure enough, on the night sea, a warship was rapidly approaching from behind the pirate ship. Boom, 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 boom. Then, more intensive cannons sounded, and 7 or 8 shells whizzed through the air, smashing fiercely on the sea surface, stirring up a water column more than 10 meters high. Boom. Quiet. Villain, seeing the panicked crowd in front of him, Hubie pulled out the flintlock pistol on his waist with an angry expression, fired a shot into the sky, and then shouted, What are you panicking about? We have 500 people in our hands. Hostages, whoever dares to attack us, push those hostages to the front as human shields. Sorry to interrupt, those hostages have already been rescued. Advertisement. Lucci's face was sullen, and he looked at villain QB with sharp eyes, and then said in an extremely displeased tone. Originally, according to my plan, I was going to kill the group of weak soldiers who have no right to survive, and then come to kill you. It's a pity that some annoying guy saved them, so you have no chance. What? Someone is going to save the hostage. Why didn't the watchman give a warning? Quote. The The pirates of the villainous pirate group were shocked and looked towards the shore, but found that the large warehouse that was almost close at hand was silent, and the big iron gate was not opened, but there were two corpses lying quietly at the door. B****************, D, how dare you destroy my dream? Villain Kubi pointed a gun at Lu Chi angrily, and roared angrily, come on, let me go to the warehouse and check it out. Even if the hostages escape, take them back. Boom. There was a shot. Villain Kubi pulled the trigger of the flintlock pistol in his hand, and the buckshot flew out of the gun chamber at a high speed, shooting at Lu Chi. Shave. With a cold face, Lu Chi suddenly disappeared in place. In the next second, there were screams from the crowd on the deck, hot blood splashed into the air, and then spilled all over the ground. Ah, it hurts. The knife cut off. Quote. In a short while, the deck was littered with corpses, and there were dead people everywhere. There were blood holes in their chests that looked like they had been shot by a gun, or wounds that looked like they had been cut by a sword. Lu Chi stood among dozens of corpses with his hands covered in blood. He raised his hand and wiped the bloodline splashed on his cheeks with the back of his clean hand, then smiled ferociously and said in a low voice, Pirate, let all kill you all. Evil. Demon. Seeing this scene, the surrounding pirates were all terrified, and even screamed in fear. On the other side, under the quiet night, behind the huge warehouse on the shore, there was a triangular gap in the thick wall. One after another, soldiers of the Royal Army got out of the gap and escaped from the big warehouse curry. Advertisement. Cross folded his arms and stood beside the triangle gap with a calm expression, silently counting the number of escaped soldiers. Bang, 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 bang. Suddenly, the roar of an explosion broke the silence of the night, followed by intensive gunfire, which caused panic among the unarmed Royal Army soldiers. Lu Chi made a move. Cross raised his head with a smile on his face, and then said to the Royal Army soldiers in front of him, you guys continue to retreat until you reach the palace and castle on the mountain. As for the pirates who are chasing you, leave them to me. After finishing speaking, Cross bent slightly, holding the Jingsho knife at his waist with one hand, and got into the dark big warehouse curry. Since last night, after receiving the kingdom's request for help, Cross has let the activated battleship, Harrage 19, advance at full speed, hoping to return to the kingdom of Tobias within a day. Fortunately, the activated battleship, Harrage 19, lived up to expectations, showing precise control over wind and currents, and finally rushed back to the kingdom of Tobias within a day, before Rob Lucci took action. Cut off. Later in the palace, Cross overwhelmed Rob Lucci with his strength, and then let Lucci go to the ship of the villain pirates to deal with the pirates, and let General Humir lead a group of royal troops aboard the Harwich 19 battleship, go around to the rear of the pirate ship and cooperate with Rob Lucci's attack. As for Cross himself, he first secretly dealt with the pirates guarding the warehouse gate, and then walked behind the big warehouse, quietly cutting a gap in the wall with a knife to rescue the hostages inside. Fortunately, all of this went very smoothly, and no pirates from the villainous pirate group discovered it. It's such a shame that Master Cross came to save us. Damn it, if I didn't have any weapons, I would definitely stay and follow the Earl. Let's go, staying here will only hinder Master Cross. Quote. The soldiers of the Royal Army were so touched that they hurried to evacuate. Many wanted to stay and help Cross, but they knew that they had no weapons in their hands, and staying would only hinder them, so they had to leave sullenly. Sure enough, before everyone had evacuated, the huge iron gate that closed the large warehouse opened with a bang, and the bright moonlight shone in. There are a lot fewer people. There are holes in the walls, and they all ran through the holes. Wait, where did this kid come from? Quote. Dozens of pirates gathered outside the door of the big warehouse, just in time to see more than half of the hostages gone, and Cross standing at the door. Chapter 31 Go, let your name spread throughout the world. Advertisement. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. It would be a waste to kill people. Unfortunately, they are a bunch of scum, so there is nothing we can do about it. Cross looked at the bright full moon in the sky, and slowly pulled out the Jingsho knife from his waist. One knife-style shock wave. In an instant, Cross slashed with his saber, setting off a turbulent wind of the saber, blowing away dozens of pirates at the door on the spot. Rumble. A fierce wind of swords swept across the scene, and a dozen pirates were blown into the sky like straws, and slammed into the hull of the huge pirate ship on the pier. In a blink of an eye, the entrance of the big warehouse was already in a mess, and there were pirates lying on the ground everywhere, with broken bones and tendons, howling endlessly. Just swinging a knife. Is this kid a monster? A pirate said in a trembling tone as he lay on the ground. Don't be afraid, he is alone, push the mortar up and blow this guy up. On both sides of the shore, there was a pirate who was lucky enough not to be affected by the knife wind, holding his musket high and yelling loudly. However, at this moment, Cross dashed out of the big warehouse with a stride, at an extremely fast speed, and even rushed into the group of pirates on the shore outside with a gust of howling wind. The Jingsho knife, one of the 50 crafts of Liang Kuei knife, flits through the air, and the sharp blade can easily cut off the swords in the hands of pirates, or launch the lead bullets, and then cut through the skin of the human body even more easily, muscle and bones. At this moment, Cross swung like a shinigami, continuously harvesting the lives of the pirates, and the long knife in his hand seemed to have reached the legendary state of, nothing goes on forever. The sword was cut off, the musket was cut off, the throat and trachea were cut off, the hands and feet were cut off, the chest was cut open. Today's moonlight is beautiful, and the bright moonlight shines on the earth, but it shines a horror scene like a slaughterhouse. The fishy red blood, the shocking broken limbs and broken arms, the viscera wriggling on the ground, the horrible scenes are even more bloody and horrifying than the most terrifying horror movies. I don't know how long it has passed. Cross stood among the countless corpses, exhaled slowly, and said to himself, it's really weak. Compared to that mottled bird. Hey, what stupid am I talking about, to take this group of corpses? The guy is so stupid compared to that mottled bird. Advertisement. The matter was resolved perfectly, all the pirates who invaded the kingdom of Tobias were killed, and none of them escaped. Afterwards, Rob Lucci didn't intend to stay too long at all, and left the kingdom of Tobias on a world government ship before dawn. As for Cross, who saved 500 people, it was no surprise that he once again became the hero of the Tobias kingdom and received sincere thanks from all the citizens. After all, the kingdom of Tobias is a small country with a small population, and 500 people equals 500 families. If it is placed in the game, the prestige value will be, slowly, rising. Fortunately, Harwich 19 is a benevolent and generous king, and he doesn't care that Cross has a high prestige among all the people. Otherwise, other narrow-minded kings would have already done something to Cross. In addition, due to the powerful firepower of the villain pirates, the kingdom of Tobias seized many artillery and muskets, which greatly enhanced the strength of the kingdom army, which made General Humir laugh from ear to ear. But Cross didn't stay in the palace for long, and soon said goodbye to the king, ministers and generals, and returned to his villa. After being away from home for a few days, the crack cut by him in the courtyard of the villa has been repaired. Only in the woods outside, the huge crack that is hundreds of meters long and reaches the coast is still there. Cross walked into the lobby of the villa, sat down comfortably on the sofa, and soon a maid brought his favorite black tea. There is no way, there is no happy water in this world, so you can only learn from those nobles and drink black tea to pretend. As for drinking red wine to pretend, he is still too young to reach that age. Little Cross, I heard about what happened this time, and you did a good job. However, it seems very dangerous that even you have been injured so badly. The old butler Henriel walked over with a cane and looked at him with a glance. When he saw the bandages wrapped around Cross, the old man couldn't help showing a worried expression. The injury on my body was done overseas. It's just a flesh wound. It will heal within a few days. Don't worry, Grandpa Henry. Cross comforted with a smile. That's good, that's good. Henry nodded repeatedly, but the worried expression on his face still didn't disappear. By the way, does Grandpa Henriel have any thoughts about the crack in the woods? Cross asked, changing the subject. I plan to leave that crack, and then find someone to repair a canal to bring seawater into the villa. Then, the swimming pool and fountain can use cheaper seawater. Henriel said to Cross my own opinion. Seawater. Cross, face turned black, and he almost spit out the black tea he just drank. Advertisement. What's wrong? Seeing Cross's uneasy expression, Henry asked, does little Cross have any other ideas? Grandpa Henry, this time I went out and got a devil fruit. I ate it. The side effect is that if the body is soaked in seawater, it will temporarily lose all strength. Cross said helplessly. Devil fruit. Henriel turned pale in shock, and quickly said, why do you eat that kind of thing? So, don't you have been rejected by the sea and become a landlubber? Although devil fruit has side effects, devil fruit also represents power. Cross raised his hand, stared at the palm, and said suddenly, Grandpa Henriel, I plan to recover from my injury and go to the Marine. Join Marine. At this moment, Henriel's face froze, as if his whole body froze, and he froze in place on the spot. Immediately, the old butler showed a relieved expression again, and sighed. Yeah, you have grown up too, it's time to go out and venture out. I have known for a long time that the kingdom of Tobias is too small to accommodate your existence, I just didn't expect this day to come so soon. Grandpa Henriel. Cross looked at the old housekeeper's old face with a look of unbearable expression, his lips trembled slightly, he didn't know what was going on with the words he had planned, and he couldn't speak them alive. He is not a wooden man, nor is he a cold-blooded monster. The 15 years of getting along and the relationship of 15 years are not casual talk. Okay, little Cross, don't make such a weak gesture. Suddenly, Henriel straightened his expression, and said in a proud tone, it's better to join the Marine than to be a pirate. You are already a man who can stand on your own. With your talent, you can shrink down at the base of the little Tobias kingdom. There is no future, your future is in the ocean. Go, I'll wait at home, waiting to see your name appear in the paper. Let your name spread throughout the world, Infiltrating Cross. Chapter 32 Meek Island. Advertisement. North Blue Meek Island. This is a small island located on a commercial waterway, with a daily population of only about 10,000 people. It is also the location of the Marine 201 branch. It's just that before Marine didn't come, the residents of the island relied on fishing for a living, and they had to endure the bullying of pirates and gang members from time to time. But after the arrival of Marine, the pirates were captured, the gangsters were smashed, and the Marine base was established, thus restoring peace to the island. Also because of the Marine base, Meek Island was rarely harassed by pirates in the future, which made the island very safe, and all passing ships would come here to rest and replenish. So taking this opportunity, the commerce on the island gradually developed. Residents and foreign investors on the island built various places such as hotels, casinos, bars, commercial streets, etc., which made Meek Island more prosperous. On this day, a handsome boy with short silver hair, wearing a pure white shirt and a black windbreaker with blue arabesque pattern, took a small sailboat and arrived at the port of Meek Island leisurely. An old fisherman who still kept the tradition of fishing at sea sat on the fishing boat, looked at the young man in front of him in surprise, and asked curiously, "Hello, you came from another island, right?" "That's right, my name is Amphitheater Cross. I'm from the kingdom of Tobias, and I'm here to join the Marine on Meek Island." Then he asked with a smile, "By the way, old man, how can I get to the 201 branch of Marine?" It turned out that after more than 10 days of recuperation, Cross left home when all his injuries recovered, bid farewell to Harwich 19 and others, and resolutely came to participate in the Marine. Although Harwich 19 and other high-level officials of the kingdom were unwilling to leave for Cross, no one spoke out to dissuade him, because they all knew that the kingdom of Tobias was too small to accommodate a monster destined to belong to the sea like Cross. So, Cross directly bought a 10-meter-long sailing boat, and sailed across the ocean to the Marine branch closest to Tobias' kingdom. "It's unbelievable," the old fisherman said in disbelief with a startled look on his face. "Could it be that you, a young man, came across the ocean on this small sailboat?" "Just kidding, it's just too shaking when I sleep at night. By the way, the old man hasn't told me how to get to the Marine stronghold yet," Cross said with a smile. "Are all the kids these days so good? This reminds me of the era of the great pirates, when many people went out to sea with a small boat," the old fisherman said to himself after looking at Cross. Advertisement. Mister, can you tell me how to get to the Marine stronghold?" Cross's facial muscles twitched, his smile was a bit forced, so he had to ask again. "Hey, seeing a child like you, I really feel old." "That's right, I'm 66, and I'm getting old." The old fisherman couldn't help sighing. "Mister, can you tell me how to get to the Marine stronghold?" Cross asked with a stiff expression, gnashing his teeth. "If I had a grandson, I wonder if he would have grown up to this size." The old fisherman was still immersed in his memories. Finally, Cross couldn't maintain the ferocious expression on his face, and cursed angrily, "You old b*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** coast. After 1 kilometer, you will see a military port and a fortress. There is the 201 branch of Marine. Cross had a mouthful of anger stuck in his throat, he couldn't get it out, he couldn't swallow it back, not to mention how depressed he was. Afterwards, he glared at the old fisherman facing him angrily, and quickly rowed to the shore without saying a word. Because he was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he couldn't help hacking this guy to death. After seeing Cross leave, the old fisherman couldn't help but collapsed, leaned against the boat canopy, and breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't until a moment later that the old fisherman, who was weak all over, managed to recover. He raised his trembling hand and wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said to himself, "Are all the kids so powerful now? No wonder Suru made little more keep an eye out for this kid, it's just exaggerated. It's a good thing you're here to join Marine's camp, otherwise, it would be a disaster for North Blue. That's not right. I've already retired, so leave these matters to little more. Advertisement. On the other side, Cross left the small sailboat in the port, put a jingsho knife on his waist, and carried a cloth bag full of Bailey, gold and clothes, and went ashore with a displeased face. The towns and ports of Meek Island are very prosperous, and there are many ships that come to rest and supply supplies. Everywhere you look, there are busy workers and sailors everywhere, as well as drunken drunkards and businessmen who are negotiating with tax officials. Of course, the tax officer in charge of the port also saw Cross, but seeing that he was only an underage child, he didn't step forward to inquire, completely ignoring his existence. After Cross landed, he didn't even enter the town, so he went straight to the coast on the right according to the direction pointed by the old fisherman. Not long after, Cross left the town port of Meek Island, and there were suddenly fewer pedestrians on the road. After walking for more than 200 meters, Cross passed through a coconut grove, and finally saw a stone fortress appearing on the coastal cliff in front of him, flying the Marine's flag of the Seagull of Justice. When Cross approached, he found that there was another port built on the shoal below the stone fortress, surrounded by a long stone wall about 3 meters high, forming a closed military area, but one large and one small port could still be seen. 2 warships are moored in the harbor. The terrain here is dangerous, especially the location of the stone fortress is on a raised coast. From the land, it looks like it is built on a hillside, and it is tens of meters high from the sea. If you are equipped with enough cannons and guns, even an army of tens of thousands of people can easily stop it, let alone ordinary pirates. It's here. Cross looked at the Marine base in front of him, and when he heard the bursts of gunshots coming from inside, he felt inexplicable emotion in his heart, and walked towards the gate of Marine base. It was a large iron gate that opened outwards, and there were 2 sailors with guns standing guard, and there was a 10-meter high sentry tower beside it, and a sailor was also on guard. At this time, seeing someone approaching non-stop, a sailor stepped forward, stopped in front of the visitor, smiled and waved. "Hey, kid, this is Marine base, you can't go in, go play elsewhere bar." "I'm not here to play, I'm here to participate in Marine." Cross didn't care, and smiled and patted the jingsho knife hanging on his waist. Chapter 33 Marine 201 Branch. Advertisement. The sailor turned his head and looked at his companion behind him, then asked Cross with a strange expression, "How old are you?" 15 years old. Cross replied honestly, "Sorry, we don't accept children, come after you are 17 years old." Hai Bing shook his head and refused. At the same time, he looked up at Cross, who was half a head taller than himself, and estimated that the child in front of him was more than 1.8 meters tall. He couldn't help but wonder in his heart, do all children grow up on hormones? He's actually taller than an adult like me. Huh, what are hormones? Cross took a step back with a calm expression, and without speaking, he just slowly pulled out the famous knife, Jingsho, from his waist. What do you want to do? Seeing Cross suddenly domineering, two sailors at the gate and a sailor on the sentry tower quickly raised their guns and became vigilant. Cross ignored the sentries, but turned around, pointed at a large rock outcropping more than 10 meters away with the long knife in his hand, and said, "See that rock?" As soon as the words fell, he raised the Jingsho knife in his hand high, and then slashed out in the air. Laugh. An invisible and fierce knife wind burst out, cutting off the big rock more than 10 meters away in an instant, and the upper half slid down obliquely. The incision was so smooth that there was no roughness. This scene stunned the three sailors at the entrance of the marine base, their jaws almost dislocated because their mouths were open too wide. I said, "I want to join the marine." Cross looked at the expressions of the three sailors, put the knife back into its sheath contentedly, and then repeated what he said earlier. "Come in, come in, come in. I'm going to inform Colonel Moore." Quote. The three sailors woke up with a start, bowed their heads and opened the iron gate with a nod, inviting Cross in. Trouble. Advertisement. Cross was not polite either. He smiled and cupped his hands, followed one of the sailors into the marine base. In fact, Marine's normal recruitment only accepts adults over the age of 17, and does not accept underage teenagers and children. But there are exceptions, such as talented teenagers, or orphans who have lost their families, or who are deliberately supported by a certain Marine executive. They will all be included in the Marine as an exception. For example, the former Admiral, Black Arm, Zephyr of Naval Headquarters joined Marine at the age of 14 in order to become a hero, and entered the Marine Academy as contemporaries with 18-year-old Garp, 19-year-old Sengoku and 17-year-old Crane. Then there was Kebi, who joined the Marine at the age of 16, and then became a subordinate of Garp, and was promoted to colonel in 2 years, becoming the youngest colonel in the Marine. Therefore, it is not absolute that Marine does not accept underage children. The Marine base inside the stone wall is very simple and empty. Except for the port with warehouses and docks, it is a large open area. From the gate at the stone wall to the stone fortress on the hillside, there is a road paved with bluestone slabs. Nearly 100 meters long, it divides this open land into two, and subdivides several playgrounds for daily training. Cross saw that on the playgrounds on both sides, there were many sailors who were practicing different subjects such as formation training, knife skills training, and volley shooting training. As for the building, there is only a huge stone fortress on the top of the hillside. It seems that it should be a multifunctional fortress that integrates military defense, military supplies storage, soldiers' accommodation and canteen dining. Not long after, Cross, led by the sailors at the gate, came to the huge stone fortress on the hillside. Originally, Cross looked ordinary from a distance, but when you look closely, it is indeed a large stone fortress. I saw that this stone fortress was about 20 meters high, and it was divided into 4 floors. It is a huge square monster entrenched on the shore. Why did you bring a child here? He's here for the Marine. Ha, participate in Marine. Get out of the way, I'm going to take him to Colonel Moore. Quote. The sailor standing guard at the gate of the fortress inquired and learned that Cross was here to participate in the Marine. He couldn't help but look at Cross's immature face a few more times, but seeing that he was led in by his companions, he didn't stop him from letting him go. Let the two go in. Afterwards, Cross entered the marine fortress smoothly, and turned his head around strangely, looking around for the surrounding environment. The inside of the fortress is not dark, narrow and dull, but the passages are spacious, brightly lit, and the environment is clean. The sailors passing by are also neatly dressed and have high morale. At this time, the leading sailor saw Cross looking around and thought he was a little nervous, so he smiled and said, "Don't worry, with your strength, Colonel Moore will definitely let you join the Marine, but why did you come out at such an age?" Joining the Marine. By the way, my name is Dom, your comrade in arms in the near future. Advertisement. Thank you, my name is Amphitheater Cross. Seeing the other party talking to himself, Cross happily chatted with the other party, and said with a smile, "As for why I came to participate in Marine at such an early age, it is because I want to become stronger, instead of just waiting in a small country die, that would be so boring." You're really interesting. Don't tell me you've already beaten invincible players in your own country. Ha 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 ha, Dom laughed. Oh, you must have heard my story, otherwise how would you know that I am invincible? Cross spread his hands and laughed jokingly. Ha 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 ha, that's really cool. Of course, Dom would not think that Cross was telling the truth, but he was still willing to joke together. Although Cross was telling the truth, he was also willing to make the other party think he was joking, and did not choose to expose or deliberately pretend. The two chatted happily, and soon climbed up to the 4th floor and arrived at the door of a room. Boom boom boom. Dom raised his hand and knocked on the door, and shouted loudly, "Report." Come in. Immediately, a slightly magnetic voice came from inside. Hearing the sound, Dom pushed the door out, and Cross followed him in. The room is large, with a brown carpet on the floor, as well as furniture and decorations such as a fireplace, sofa, coffee table, bookcase, hangers, vases, and oil paintings. Cross glanced and saw a tall, thin, black-haired man sitting behind the opposite desk, biting a cigar, wearing a marine justice coat, and writing something with a quill pen, as if he was dealing with some documents. Seaman Apprentice Dom reports that someone has come to the 201 branch to join the army, because of his special status. Please Colonel Moore to make a decision. Dom stood at attention and saluted, and reported loudly. That Colonel Moore paused, then looked up, meeting Cross's gaze. I saw that Colonel Moore had a weak face and flat eyes, but there was an X-shaped scar on his forehead, which added a bit of fierceness to him. My name is Amphitheater Cross, I'm from the kingdom of Tobias, and I'm 15 years old this year. Cross took a step forward and said his background and information in a deep voice. Chapter 34. Advertisement. Colonel Moore exhaled a puff of smoke slowly, looked Cross up and down, and said with a smile, I thought you would come later, but I didn't expect you to come so soon. At this time, Dom didn't change his face, but murmured in his heart. He didn't expect his colonel to be this new boy. Original injury, otherwise it would have come earlier. Cross replied calmly without any surprise. I heard from Crane Vice Admiral that you did a good job in Lubney Kingdom. Colonel Moore stood up from his seat, walked around the desk, walked in front of Cross, and said softly, I am Colonel Alan Tay Moore, the commander of the 201st Marine Branch. Welcome to Marine. My pleasure, Colonel Moore. Cross smiled, imitating Dom's salute, and raised his hand to Colonel Moore in front of him to salute Marine. Immediately, Colonel Moore raised his hand and returned a military salute. Dom, you've done a good job, go get busy. Then, Colonel Moore waved his hand to let Dom leave. Thank you, Colonel, for exaggerating. Dom received the compliment, responded loudly with a smile on his face, then saluted again, then turned and left the office. Sit down and smoke a cigar. Afterwards, Colonel Moore sat on the sofa beside him, picked up a cigar from the mahogany humidor on the coffee table, and gestured to Cross. As this encouraging children to smoke. Cross sat on the sofa on the other side and said helplessly. Ha ha ha, sorry, I almost forgot. Colonel Moore remembered that the person sitting across from him was still a 15-year-old boy, so he smiled and apologized, and put the cigar back into the humidor. Suddenly, Cross's eyes stopped on the photo frame placed on the coffee table. The photo inside was a group photo of the young Colonel Moore and a middle-aged sailor. The two put their shoulders on each other and smiled happily. Colonel, the photo shows you when you were young, who is the other person? Cross looked at the middle-aged sea soldier with familiarity, and asked directly. Indeed, the photo shows me when I was 20 years old. Unexpectedly, 15 years have passed. Colonel Moore looked at the photo in the frame and recalled with a smile. As for the other person, he took me to the Marine. The leader, Colonel Dorfman, is also the former commander of the 201st Branch. So that's it seems that it's because he's retired, and he's fishing near the port. Cross murmured. Advertisement. Hey, how do you know that he retreated? Colonel Moore was taken aback for a moment, then he came to his senses and said with a smile. No wonder you asked, so you met Dorfman. That's right, Colonel Dorfman showed me the way. Cross recalled the scene when he met the other party, and couldn't help but accentuate his tone. Seeing that Cross's tone was not very good, Colonel Moore had a strange look on his face, and he also remembered the other party's bad taste, so he quickly changed the subject and said seriously. Crane Vice Admiral said that if you join Marine, he will recommend you go to the Marine School in the headquarters to study, so you will temporarily be incorporated into my 201 branch to become a recruit, and wait for the next notice. Do you have any comments? No problem, I obey the order. Cross shook his head. That's good. Colonel Moore nodded, stood up, and smiled at the Cross. Come on, I'll take you to the dormitory, and you can follow us to do morning exercises tomorrow. Trouble, Colonel. Cross also stood up and thanked him with a smile. Next, under the leadership of Colonel Alan Tay Moore, the two left the office and walked towards the other side of the corridor. Along the way, many officers and soldiers saw Colonel Moore and stopped to salute and say hello. This made Cross see that Colonel Moore was very popular and had a high prestige in the 201 branch. Soon, Colonel Moore stopped at the door of a room, then pushed open the door and walked in. Cross looked inside, and couldn't help asking in surprise, single dormitory. With an area of about 30 square meters, there are single beds, wardrobes, storage cabinets, solid wood tables and solid wood chairs inside. It is very simple and nothing else. For special talents, of course special treatment is required. Colonel Moore spread his hands and said with a smile, and I heard that you were a nobleman, even an earl, so I don't know if you can adapt to such a simple and small environment. What about the room? Don't underestimate me. Cross stepped into the single room, gestured to Colonel Moore with a smile, and said, I can still suffer a little bit. Although it can't be compared with the villa in his current life, when he rented a house in his last life, the area of the house was only 35 square meters. I can rest assured that. Colonel Moore nodded in satisfaction, and continued, next, let me introduce you to the basic situation of this fortress. Following the other party's introduction, Cross clearly understood the basic information here. Advertisement. The first floor is the cafeteria and bathroom. Breakfast starts at 7 o'clock and ends at 8 o'clock. Lunch starts at 11:30 noon and ends at 12:30. Dinner starts at 17:30 and ends at 18:30. The bath time is 24 hours, but hot water is only available at night. The second and third floors are dormitories for sailors. The fourth floor is the single dormitory for officers above the lieutenant rank and the offices of various departments, as well as the storage room for special weapons. The rooftop on the top floor is a sea watchtower, and its duty is to monitor the ships around the marine base and the sea. In addition, there is a cellar underground in the fort, which is used to store weapons and gunpowder, as well as food and water, so that it can be used for long-term defense when the fort is under siege. Are you clear about the details? Colonel Moore asked. Thank you, Colonel. I understand everything. Cross thanked. That's good. You rest today, I will ask you to go to the cafeteria to eat tonight, and I will arrange troops for you tomorrow. Colonel Moore bit his cigar, reached out and patted Cross on the shoulder, then turned and left the room. Seeing the other party close the door and leave, Cross withdrew his gaze, put the cloth bag on his back on the table, and walked around the room with a complicated expression. Being a human being in 2 lifetimes and joining the army for the first time, why is it different from what I imagined? On the other side, after Colonel Moore returned to his office, he locked the door. Then he went around to the desk, opened a drawer, took out a small pink phone bug, and placed it on the desk. Colonel Moore sat down, stared blankly at the pink phone bug in front of him, slowly exhaled a puff of white smoke, and raised his hand to dial the phone bug. Boo 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 boo. The phone bug rang a few times, and it clicked through. Foo 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 foo. I guess there must be news I want, Colonel Moore. There was an evil laugh coming from the phone bug. If Cross was here, he would definitely be able to hear that the owner of this laugh was that guy Doflamingo. Joker, the kid you asked me to pay attention to has already arrived at Branch 201 and joined the Marine. Colonel Moore said indifferently. Chapter 35 Crane's Recommendation. Advertisement. Sure enough, that troublesome brat really joined Marine. Doflamingo on the other end of the phone worm said with a smile, Heh, I really can't help it, it seems that Marine will get another powerful one in the near future. What about combat power? I didn't expect you to be so optimistic about him. No wonder Crane Vice Admiral specifically told me to keep that kid, and said that she would use her recommendation quota to recommend that kid to Marine school. Colonel Moore said in a deep voice. Said. Crane. Foo, that woman still has vicious eyes as always. Doflamingo said with a smile. Okay, the matter about that brat is none of my business. Anyway, he won't be staying in Branch 201 for long, so it's your turn. Colonel Moore said coldly. Foo, it's still as indifferent as ever. Doflamingo teased, then paused, and then continued. Well, 5 days later, a merchant ship with the flag of the Jimmy Chamber of Commerce will come to transport what you want as wine, tea and medicinal materials, but actually smuggled a large number of weapons and prohibited ecstasy % drugs, it depends on whether you have the guts. Jimmy's Chamber of Commerce. Isn't this a first-class Chamber of Commerce on the Grand Line? Why did it come to North Blue? Colonel Moore wondered. Isn't Jimmy Myers, the newly appointed president of the Jimmy Chamber of Commerce, allowed to open up new markets? Just kidding, that merchant ship actually just borrowed the flag of the Jimmy Chamber of Commerce. Doflamingo chuckled away. So that's it, I understand. Click. Colonel Moore hung up the bug in doubt, and then put it back in the drawer. Who wouldn't have thought that the dignified Marine 201 branch's base chief would actually have a connection with the great pirate, Heavenly Yaksha, Don Quixote Doflamingo, or a transaction? 5 days later, Jimmy Chamber of Commerce. Colonel Moore bit his cigar, stared blankly at the sea outside the glass window, and muttered to himself. After sitting blankly in the office for a while, Colonel Moore came back to his senses, his bewildered eyes became gentle again, then he reached out and picked up the phone bug placed on the desk. Boo. Click. The phone connected after beeping a few times. Colonel Moore smiled and said to the microphone in a gentle tone, Naval Headquarters, I am Colonel Alan Taymor of the 201st Branch of North Blue, please transfer me to the Crane. Vice Admiral. The first half of the Grand Line Naval Headquarters open black lens bracket Marineford close black lens bracket. Advertisement. Well, I see, leave the file and entry materials to me to handle. Thank you, Colonel Moore. Click. In the spacious office, Crane held the microphone on the phone bug's back, said a few words with a smile, and then hung up the phone bug. Big sister, why are you so happy? At this time, Guillaume walked into the office with a knife on his waist in a leisurely manner, and saw the smile on Suru's face, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. Little Guillaume, you came just in time, help me get the files on the coffee table, those few pages are all there. Crane also didn't notice, still smiling and said. Instigated me when I first came here, on the coffee table. Guillaume murmured and turned around, walked towards the side coffee table, bent down to collect the files scattered on the coffee table, and suddenly she saw the name, Amphitheater Cross, written on one of the pages, and also attached photos. I couldn't help but be taken aback. Why is there a file for that kid named Cross? Has he joined the Marine? Guillaume asked puzzled after collecting the files and handing them to Suru. That's right, Cross has officially joined the Marine in the 201st Branch of North Blue. Crane nodded and stood up holding Cross, file. Oh, so you plan to recommend him to be a student of this term at Marine School? Guillaume said clearly. Do you have anything else to do? Crane looked at Guillaume indifferently, and said bluntly, if you have nothing to do, go away, I'm going to Sengoku's place. TCH, can't you come and sit if you have nothing to do? Guillaume pouted and said a little depressed. Little girl, whatever you want. Crane gave Guillaume a helpless look, ignored her, and left the office on his own, leaving Guillaume alone to occupy the office. Afterwards, Crane took Cross's file and came to another spacious office. I saw that this office was no smaller than Crane's office, and it was even more luxurious in the interior and desks and cabinets, and the arrangement was a little different. A man with a black afro hairstyle, frog glasses, and a black beard sits behind a desk, burying his head in processing a mountain of documents in front of him. Advertisement. The G5 branch needs to allocate 500 million Baileys to build the fortress. Permitted. The G3 branch needs to add 2 second-tier warships. GARP. Not allowed. The Fren Island Frontline Station monitoring BIGMOM has been completed, and Prodi Vice Admiral is proposed to be the director. Approved. Quote. Suddenly he heard footsteps in the office, so he looked up subconsciously, with a smile on his face, and said, Xiaohei, why come here when you have time? This person is none other than the Marine Admiral known as Open Black Lens Bracket, the resourceful General Close Black Lens Bracket, the Sengoku of the Buddha, the highest combat power in the world government and the strongest combat power in naval headquarters. I will send you a file. I want to recommend him to enroll in this year's Marine school. Crane walked to the desk, put the file in his hand on the table, and said bluntly. Oh, I can be recommended by you. Did you find some good talent? Sengoku smiled even more, and quickly put down the pen in his hand, and picked up the file on the table. It's the boy I told you about before. He has joined the Marine and is now in the 201st branch of North Blue. Crane replied with a smile. You mean the young Earl who is only 15 years old and can start a big fight with Doflamingo? You personally ordered people from the intelligence department to collect some, just for him. Sengoku raised his eyebrows and said in surprise. That's right, you can check the file for specific information. He nodded, and said in a deep voice, in short, with that young man's aptitude, if he trains well, the future admiral is not impossible. That's right, your evaluation is so high. Sengoku showed surprise, and quickly opened the file bag, took out the files inside and looked at it. After a while, Sengoku's expression changed slightly, and he almost couldn't believe it. Hey, is the information wrong? I broke my nurse's finger at birth, broke rocks with bare hands at the age of 3, hunted giant tigers at the age of 5, learned swordsmanship at the age of 8, mastered all the moves of this genre within half a year, defeated the swordsmanship teacher at the age of 10. The record is a bit too exaggerated. From the deeds of Cross's birth, to the recent teaming up with world government agents to solve the 500 hostage incident, there are records in the archives. There are even records that Cross wiped out a slave gang when he was 12 years old, and suffered revenge from the remnants of the slave gang, and was assassinated more than 10 times in a few years. Sengoku suddenly raised his head, looked at Crane, who had been smiling all the time, and then looked at Cross's file again, and then let out a breath of foul air, and said with surprise from ear to ear, Generations are all Tobias is an aristocrat from the kingdom of Tobias, with a clean background and such high qualifications, no wonder you would recommend him to the Marine School, and even give him a very high evaluation, he is indeed a rare talent. Very good, I agree, let him enter this year's Marine School. Chapter 36 First Mission. Advertisement. Meek Island Marine Branch 201. Beep. The sharp wooden whistle broke the tranquility of the morning and woke up the sleeping Cross. Cross on the bed opened his eyes dazedly, yawned a long time, then slowly lifted the quilt, and sat up from the bed. At this moment, the closet opened automatically, and the folded white sailor suit, dark blue pants, and blue scarf all jumped out, as if they had come to life, bouncing to the bedside, scrambling to put them on Cross. Well, it's too tight. I can't breathe. Suddenly, Cross's expression changed, and he quickly covered his neck with his hands, his face flushed red, his eyeballs protruded, and his tongue stuck out, as if he was about to be strangled to death. It turned out that the blue scarf tied around his neck was too enthusiastic, causing it to be tied too tightly, which almost strangled him to death. Call. Cross quickly loosened the blue scarf around his neck so that he could breathe smoothly, then put on the matching shoes, picked up his wash basin, towel, toothbrush and cup from the storage cabinet, opened the door and left the room. Hi, Cross. Hi, Marco Lieutenant Junior Grade. Good morning, Cross. Major Rice, good morning. Cross, are you still asleep? Stop rambling, Beachy Ensign. Quote. On the way to the public restroom, Cross kept saying hello to the passing Marine officers, and he seemed quite familiar with them. Because, this is already the 5th day that Cross has been on Meek Island, and he is basically familiar with the Marine officers of the 201st Division who live on the 4th floor. Of course, Cross was able to get acquainted with these Marine officers not only because of his status as a minor, but more because of his own strength. In a few days, except for Colonel Moore as the commander, Cross relied on his own strong strength to compete with the officers and soldiers of the 201st branch dozens of times, and directly defeated the 201st branch. Got the title of a monster. Originally, the officers and soldiers in the 201st branch thought that Colonel Moore let him live in an officer's single dormitory in order to take care of Cross, an underage child. Advertisement. As a result, after Cross fought all the invincibles of the 201st branch, all the officers and sailors understood that he was living in the office's single dormitory based on his strength, not a child under care. Soon after, Cross finished washing in the public washroom, washed his hair, wiped it clean, put everything back in the room, and walked shoulder to shoulder with several lieutenant officers to the cafeteria on the 1st floor. Marine, as the largest violent institution under the world government and the strongest force on the sea, naturally had good food every day. Morning food includes sandwiches, toast, eggs, chicken wraps, sweet, savory porridge and more. Drinks include fresh milk, miso soup, fruit juice, etc. You can choose what you like to eat at will. Similarly, as a member of the monster, Cross is powerful, and his appetite is naturally not bad. I only saw that he maintained the elegant dining style of an aristocrat, but he ate enough food for 10 people to barely fill himself up abdomen. I'm full, take it easy. Not long after, Cross put down the knife and fork in his hand, elegantly wiped the food residue from the corner of his mouth with a napkin, and then politely said to the lieutenants in front of him. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Although I have seen it more than once, I still feel a bit exaggerated. Hee hee, little Cross, you are such a monster. Quote. Several lieutenants forced a smile and continued to eat their own breakfast. Cross didn't care either. He stood up and prepared to go to the percent playground for some exercise percent physical fitness, and then go back to study, and read the few books Colonel Moore gave him. In fact, as a recruit, it is natural to train with other recruits, so as to cultivate a tacit understanding and kill the enemy together on the battlefield. However, Cross is too strong. Cooperating with ordinary soldiers is a complete waste of combat power. Besides, he is a strong swordsman and physicist. He is also proficient in the use of firearms and has taught himself a lot of sailing knowledge. It is necessary to practice those basic things, so I can only exercise alone. To say it is lacking, Cross is the lack of knowledge about commanding soldiers, controlling sails, and knowing about warships. However, 2 days ago, Colonel Moore told Cross that his entry materials had been handed over to Naval Headquarters, and he had passed the review of Naval Headquarters. Learn more about relevant cultural knowledge. After all, in Marine, if you want to become an officer, strength alone is not enough. Unless Cross has truly overwhelming strength, you should study honestly. In this way, Cross exercised for 2 hours in the morning, and practiced swordsmanship for another hour, then returned to the dormitory, read the book seriously, and the morning passed quickly. At noon, Cross went back to the cafeteria on the first floor and had a delicious lunch. Chicken legs, large pieces of meat, steak, tonkatsu, grilled sea fish, macaroni, curry rice. Although they are not as good as the dedicated chef of the amphitheater family, the taste is not bad. Advertisement. Just as Cross was eating his food gracefully, suddenly his eyes went dark, and it turned out that Colonel Moore was sitting opposite him. I'm going to lead a team to conduct a surprise inspection at the port in the afternoon. Are you interested in participating? Colonel Moore asked with a smile, smoking a cigar and drinking coffee. Cross raised his head excitedly, and asked, is this a task for me? You can also say that. Colonel Moore said with a smile. Then do you want to accept the mission? Recruit. Of course I accept it, Colonel Moore. Cross smiled, but his movements were still elegant, and he slowly cut off a small piece of steak with the knife in his hand, put it into his mouth with a fork, chewed it a few times, and then swallowed it. Then eat faster, and we will gather at the number 1 playground in 20 minutes. Colonel Moore picked up the coffee cup to signal, and then drank the coffee in the cup in one breath, leaving only an empty white porcelain cup on the ground. At the table, he got up and left. 20 minutes. It's enough time for me to eat 2 more steaks and then go to the bathroom. Cross muttered. The knife in his hand instantly turned into countless afterimages, cutting the steak on the plate into pieces in an instant. It cost more than 10 yuan. Mick Port. Look, elephant tuna from South Blue. The freshly picked green coconut, do you want to buy one and try it? The Knife and Fire Tavern is hosting an event, 20% off the site. Greenfield Casino, there are strippers. Quote. The port is very prosperous and crowded with people. In addition to many large warehouses for loading goods, there are also various shops on the surrounding streets. Tread, tap, tap, tread, tap, tap. Suddenly, the sound of orderly footsteps from far to near, from small to loud, quickly overwhelmed the noise in the port. Countless people quieted down and looked in the direction of the source of the sound, only to see hundreds of sailors lined up neatly, trotting into the port until they stopped in an open space. Then, Colonel Moore stood in front of the 200 sailors with his hands on his back, looked at the people on the port wharf with a gentle expression, and said loudly, Marine inspection, please cooperate. Chapter 37 Sudden Accident. Advertisement. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. The dense gunshots like fried beans sounded in Cross's ears, and then there were all kinds of screams of horror, screams of pain and angry roars. Run. Help me, damn it, FK them to death. B*********** D Marine, go to hell. Quote. The port was in chaos, with bullets flying all over the sky, and panicked crowds running around. What's more, even Colonel Moore pulled out his hands on his back, fighting fiercely with a strong man with an angry expression. I saw the giant man nearly 4 meters tall, with dark skin and a fierce face, holding a long-handled double-edged battle axe, swinging it vigorously, setting off surging winds. Every time he collided with Colonel Moore's 10 hands together, they will make a huge sound, which will shake the ears of the people around them, and even produce tinnitus. Dickens, in the name of Marine, I arrest you. The guy who hinders me from earning money, even if Marine Admiral comes, he will die. HMPH, arrogant. Finger pistol Rui. Quote. All of a sudden, Colonel Moore yelled in a deep voice, and shot out the 10 hands at high speed in the way of finger pistol. The giant man named Dickens was taken aback, and quickly turned sideways to avoid it, and then saw the 10 hands in Colonel Moore's hand passing by extremely quickly. There was no sharp point at the front of the 10 hands, but, with a bang, he pierced the warehouse wall behind him, making a round hole through which he could see the interior of the warehouse. Cross looked at the scene in front of him in bewilderment, not understanding what happened at all. Just now I was about to board a merchant ship to check whether there were any prohibited items such as ammunition, ecstasy % drugs, etc., but I heard angry shouts not far away, followed by loud gunshots, and then I saw a fierce gun battle broke out between the Marine and a group of unknown figures, throwing the port into chaos in an instant. Is my first daily inspection task so exciting? Cross thought about it, and vaguely remembered that Colonel Moore was about to board a merchant ship for inspection, but the sailors and crew on the ship refused to let Colonel Moore board the ship, so the two engines clashed, and finally triggered the current fierce gun battle. 10 minutes ago. Advertisement. Marine inspection, please cooperate. Colonel Moore announced loudly in the port, and then with a wave of his hand, all the subordinates behind him dispersed. 200 sailors, led by their respective officers, boarded the ships moored in the port and began to conduct inspections. Originally, Cross was assigned to Colonel Moore's warship and belonged to the other party's direct subordinates. Now he was temporarily assigned to Marco Ensign's subordinates. He also boarded a merchant ship and inspected the cargo in the cabin. Some captains didn't want Marine to board the ship for inspection, but they still bowed their heads and compromised when they saw the muskets and long knives in the hands of the sailors. Carrying private work is at most just a fine and confiscation of contraband, but confronting Marine is a terrible thing. Even if he survives by chance, he will be imprisoned, and even if he escapes, he will be wanted. The gain is not worth the loss. Get out of the way, we have to board the ship for inspection. Go away, the ship of our Jimmy Chamber of Commerce can also be inspected by your mere Marine. Don't be so long-winded, the last warning, will you let me go? Lousy won't get out of the way, do you still dare to shoot? Quote. Just as Colonel Moore was standing on the port, looking around with sharp eyes, suddenly on the long embankment in front of a large caravel sailing ship, a dozen sailors were blocked by a group of sailors and unable to board the ship. They quarreled, and even raised their weapons to confront each other. Jimmy Chamber of Commerce. Moonwalk. Colonel Moore's eyes were fixed, and he jumped up immediately. His feet stepped on the air in circles of circular steam storms visible to the naked eye, walking in the air like stepping on stairs, and soon came to the large caravel on the jetty causeway in front of the sailboat. It appeared again, the move of walking in the air. It's so handsome, Lord Moore. Every time I see Colonel Moore walking in the air, I feel unbelievable. Quote. At this time, the surrounding town residents started talking, and many young girls screamed in surprise. How could Moonwalk do this? It seems that Colonel Moore is not an ordinary branch colonel. Cross was very surprised when he saw Colonel Moore walking in midair on another merchant ship. Generally speaking, the strength of the Four Seas branch and naval headquarters is 3 ranks behind. Although there are exceptions, they are very rare. Not every branch chief has the strength of Smoker. Unexpectedly, Colonel Alan Tay Moore is a rare and powerful person in the Four Seas branch. Advertisement. Bang. At this time, Colonel Moore landed heavily on the long wooden embankment, staring sharply at the dozens of sailors in front of him, and said in a cold voice, Marine inspection, don't make mistakes. HMPH, you made a mistake. The next moment, a giant man with a height of nearly 4 meters appeared on the deck of the large caravel sailing ship, staring at Colonel Moore fiercely. Under the sunlight, it was dark and shiny, exuding a terrifying power. I know you. You are the bounty hunter, Mad Axe Dickens. What, do you want to fight against Marine? Colonel Moore looked at the giant without fear, and asked indifferently. It was said that this giant man named Dickens had a cruel smile on his face, and walked slowly from the boat to the long embankment of the pier, holding a long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand, and said in a earn, go away. Get out of this ship, otherwise, hack you to death. Colonel Moore stared at the giant man with sharp eyes, slowly raised his hand, and then waved it down, saying, get on the boat and search, if there is any obstacle, shoot and kill at will. Yes, more than a dozen sailors on the long embankment shouted in unison, raised their muskets at the sailors in front of them, and then rushed forward together, trying to squeeze the sailors blocking the way. Brothers, kill them. Dickens' expression became ferocious, and at the same time as he snarled, he brazenly swung the long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand, and slashed at a sailor in front of him. Get away. Colonel Moore took a sudden step forward and dragged the stunned sailor back. Bang. In the next second, the heavy double-edged battle axe seemed to cut through the air, and slashed down heavily. The sharp axe blade split a large piece of the wooden floor of the long embankment of the pier on the spot, exposing the water below. It made the water surface ripple in circles. Court death. Moore was furious, and he pulled out his hands behind his backhand, and swung at the giant man vigorously. Ha ha ha, just in time. Dickens laughed wildly, and the heavy long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand was swung by him again like a straw, and collided fiercely with the 10 hands that were smashing towards him. Clang. The ear-piercing sound of the gold and iron colliding almost made the ears of people within a radius of 20 meters tremble, and even their eyes went dark. In the next second, a strong wind visible to the naked eye spread, like a shock wave, overturning the sailors on the long embankment of the pier on the spot, and fell into the sea of the harbor. Chapter 38. The target is me. Advertisement. This giant man has great power. This guy has so much strength. Colonel Moore and Dickens were shocked by the opponent's force at the same time, and they each took a few steps back before stopping, and looked at each other with surprised eyes in unison. Immediately afterwards, Colonel Moore noticed that many people appeared on the deck of the large caravel sailing ship, all holding muskets and aiming at himself. Not good. Bang, 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 bang. Immediately, there was loud gunfire, and dozens of lead bullets came flying like a torrential rain, causing Colonel Moore to retreat and dodge quickly, not daring to take it hard. Quick, cover the colonel. At the same time, the sailors on the nearby ships saw the conflict, and hurried back to the shore of the port, holding muskets and shooting at the enemy on the large caravel sailing ship. For a while, the two sides launched a fierce gun battle, and the dense gunfire resounded throughout the port like fried beans, which immediately caused panic among innocent people. Marine, die. Afterwards, Dickens on the long embankment of the pier held a long-handled double-edged battle axe, let out a roar, and rushed to the shore of the port with big strides. The sailors and crew who rushed down from the Weir sailboat all held weapons such as muskets, hatchets, and sailor scimitars. Although the incident happened suddenly, the sailors in the port reacted quickly and launched a fierce gun battle with this group of unknown enemies. And on the shore of the port, Colonel Moore and Dickens met again, and without too much nonsense, a fierce battle broke out. So, appeared Cross saw this scene. Boom. Suddenly, a buckshot came straight for Cross. With a tilt of his head, Cross dodged the attack of the buckshot, and then looked in the direction the buckshot came from. I saw a bald man holding two guns and a woman holding a sailor's scimitar running from not far away. A dozen or so ordinary sailors joined forces, but they couldn't stop this combination. The bald man holds two flintlock pistols that can be fired continuously, wears a brown leather windbreaker and marten boots, and his marksmanship is extremely accurate. Advertisement. The woman has an ordinary appearance and an average figure, but she wears a tight black leather jacket and holds a sharp sailor's scimitar, which is so skilled that it can split flying lead bullets. Facing the blocking of more than a dozen sea soldiers, the two cooperated very tacitly, and quickly defeated the blocking sea soldiers. Aiming at me, Cross frowned slightly, noticing something was wrong. This pair of men and women ran all the way, facing the obstruction of the sailors along the way, the two of them mainly focused on defeating and suppressing, and did not make up for the wounded at all, as if they were trying to escape. However, the direction in which these two people escape is quite strange. He neither fled to the inside of the town with complex terrain and many people, nor seized the ship to escape, but just kept running along the coast of the port. The most important thing is that shot just now, the lead bullet that came out of the chamber spanned a distance of tens of meters, avoiding many sailors and panicked innocent people on the way, and flew towards Cross's forehead with great precision. It was absolutely impossible it's not stray bullets. Ha ha ha, 80 million Pele, I got it. At this time, the male and female pair had already approached Cross's expression, and the bald man laughed out loud, raised both guns in his hand, and pulled the trigger at Cross. Boom, boom, 2 shots were fired. 2 lead bullets hit Cross, forehead and chest one after the other. Kanglang, clang. The next second, the long knife was unsheathed, and a bright white light flashed in the air, and the 2 lead bullets, one behind the other, were chopped into 4 pieces in the air and fell to the ground. I just found out today that my bounty in the underground world of North Blue has already risen to 80 million Baileys. No wonder in the past few years, there have been countless killers who have come to assassinate me, and there are even capable ones. Cross held the Jingsho knife with a clear look on his face. Yo he. At this time, the bald man let out a strange cry, turned his head and said to the female companion beside him, I cut off 2 lead bullets with one knife. Harold, no wonder this brat was offered a reward of 30 million Baileys when he was 12 years old, and then skyrocketed to 80 million Bay in 3 years and still alive today. You really have a hand. Pod, this brat looks good. The woman named Harold was delighted when she saw Lai Shin, looked straight at Cross's handsome face, and greedily said, if we capture him alive, then if you sell it to Octopus, I'm afraid not only will you get the 80 million Bailey reward he issued, but you'll also have to pay for your hard work. Yoha, Harold, what a great idea. The bald man named Pod brightened his eyes and nodded decisively in agreement. Ha, you've been underestimated. Advertisement. Cross stared at the 2 people in front of him, grinning involuntarily, amused by the conversation between the man and woman. Superior. I left you right. In the next second, the man and woman glanced at each other, and attacked Cross from both sides. Boom, 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 boom. The man named Pod raised his 2 guns horizontally, pulled the trigger continuously, and fired continuously at Cross, firing lead bullets one by one. One of you is restraining, the other is the main attack. Cross saw through the tactics of the 2 opponents at a glance, but didn't move. He just waved the Jingsho knife in his hand, and then heard the sound of clang, 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 and the flames flickered in the air. The lead bullets turned into 2 halves and fell to the ground one after another. Immediately afterwards, the woman named Harold came to Cross, and said with a grim smile, little devil, let's talk honestly. While speaking, she had already raised the sailor's scimitar in her hand, and slashed at Cross's shoulder. The sharp blade almost tore through the air. It turned out that the bald man's attack was to cover the woman's approach to Cross and give the target a fatal blow. Clang. It was too late and then too soon. Cross didn't even think about it. He raised his hand and swung the knife, instantly cut off the falling sailor's scimitar, and then he slashed at the man named Harold, without losing his strength, woman's chest. Accompanied by the sound of Pu Kai, into the flesh, Yin Hong's blood splashed into the air on the spot, and this woman named Harold was terrified, watching herself being cut to the ground with a knife. Harold, how is it possible? The bald man named Pod screamed, stopped on the spot, and looked at his female companion who had fallen to the ground in disbelief. I didn't even master the skill of iron cutting, so I thought it was so strong, but it turned out that they were just 2 idiots blinded by greed. Cross shook his head with lack of interest, and said disdainfully. If you don't want to cut it, you can't even cut the paper. If you want to cut, you can cut even steel, this is the way of the swordsman. At this moment, the bald man named Pod glanced at his female companion who was lying on the ground, whose life and death were unknown, and then at Cross in front of him. He immediately turned around and ran away, not even saving his companion. Because he understands that without the main attacker to resist in front, he, the shooter, is not the opponent's opponent. Chapter 39 Attack and Kill. Advertisement. Want to escape? Have you asked me? I still have questions to ask. Cross snorted expressionlessly, then squatted down, stretched out his left hand to touch the ground, and said coldly, "Living slate." The light, which is invisible to the naked eye, centers on Cross's palm and spreads outward rapidly. The next moment, the bluestone slabs laid on the ground seemed to be lifted up, and even facial features such as eyes and mouths grew, as if they were alive, bouncing and laughing on the shore of the port. What are these things? Before Pod ran a few steps, he looked down at his surroundings with a dazed expression, and found himself surrounded by a group of inexplicable bluestone slabs. Master. Master. Father. Father. It should be called Master. No, call me Father. Quote. Suddenly, the activated bluestone slabs quarreled with each other, and even some grumpy little guys knocked over the quarreling objects with their bodies, and the knocked over bluestone slabs got up not to be outdone, and slammed into each other with their bodies. Maid, it is the first time to have life, who is afraid of whom? That's enough, subdue this bald man for me. Cross looked at the animated bluestone slabs at his feet with a headache, and couldn't help but scolded, and immediately gave the order. Yes, master. Father is angry. Come on, brothers. She's a girl. Idiots, we have no gender. Quote. Immediately, under the command of Cross, dozens of activated bluestone slabs ran towards the bald man in the middle while making noise and bouncing. It has to be said that these bluestone slabs, which are only the size of 2 palms, are bouncing and running, and the speed is not slow. Advertisement. Ada. Afterwards, the little guys jumped up screaming strangely, hitting the bald man with their bodies. Go away. Pod hurriedly dodged sideways, avoiding the impact of a bluestone slab, and then smashed the body of the bluestone slab with a bang shot. However, more bluestone slabs jumped up, scrambling to hit Pod with their bodies. Pod was shocked, and quickly raised the 2 flintlock pistols in his hand, and kept pulling the trigger, and shot indiscriminately around. Boom, 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 boom. Amidst the continuous gunshots, lead bullets came out one after another, smashing the lively bluestone slabs into pieces. However, there were too many bluestone slabs alive, and Pod was too small to fight at all. Before firing a few shots, he was hit by these bluestone slabs several times. Oops, my eyes. Go away, it hurts me to death. Not long after, Pod screamed again and again, and was soon overwhelmed by dozens of hundreds of bluestone slabs. The surrounding onlookers and sailors stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of them. They never imagined that the bluestone slab under their feet would be so irritable and ferocious after it came to life. After a while, the bluestone slabs that looked like a irascible little brother spread out, revealing a bald man lying on the ground, with a bruised nose, swollen face, and bloody head. He was in a panic. The surrounding sailors reacted and rushed forward, grabbed the man and woman, and locked them with the chains and shackles they carried with them. Cross didn't stay too long, and directly commanded the army of activated bluestone slabs, rushing towards other thugs mightily. To be honest, I don't know the origin of this group of guys. There are more than 100 people, all of whom are extremely fierce. If the 200 sailors brought by Colonel Moore are all veterans of the 201 branch, they would really be killed by the other party. One hit and crushed. However, with Cross shot, the stalemate changed. These small activated bluestone slabs shuttled among the debris on the shore, and their movements were very flexible. From time to time, they flew out from a certain corner, causing a lot of trouble to the mob. Ouch, what the hell is this? Go away. Quote. The thugs fell into chaos, and many gunmen had no choice but to run out of the bunkers in front of them. The Marines of the 201st Division took advantage of the situation to fight back, shooting randomly, killing and wounding dozens of people. Die. At this time, a thug rushed over with a roar, stabbed Cross in the stomach with a long-handled saber in both hands. Advertisement. Cross took a step back, chopped off the long-handled war knife in the opponent's hand with one swing of his hand, then knocked the knife holder to the ground with another swing, then turned sideways to avoid the machete swung by another thug, and then punched on the latter's eye socket. Shung knocked him unconscious. In this way, Cross easily chopped down or knocked down one mob after another with overwhelming power. The Jingsho knife in his hand was so sharp that no mob could pass around in front of him. 80 million Baileys are mine. Suddenly, the giant man called. Dickens saw the figure of Cross, his eyes lit up. He directly abandoned Colonel Moore in front of him, and excitedly waved his long-handled double-edged battle axe and rushed towards Cross. 80 million Baileys. These people are here for Cross. Hearing Dickens' words, Colonel Moore paused in his pursuit, as if thinking of something bad. His face became cloudy and uncertain. At this time, when Cross heard the sound, he saw a giant man nearly 4 meters tall rushing towards him, swinging a long-handled double-edged battle axe with both hands, and slashed at his head. The killing axe. Clang. In an instant, the heavy long-handled double-edged battle axe fell heavily under the strong wind, but was blocked by a large knife halfway, preventing it from advancing an inch. When the two collided, there was an ear-piercing loud noise, and the powerful force spread in all directions, immediately setting off a violent wave of air visible to the naked eye and sweeping outward. At the same time, the ground under Cross's feet couldn't bear such a huge force, and immediately collapsed, forming a circle of huge spider web-like cracks, stirring up a burst of choking dust. Blocked. Dickens was slightly taken aback. and looked at the young man in front of him in shock, only to see that the boy was holding a sword with one hand, and blocked his full blow with a taedao. Silly big man, you still have some strength. Cross slowly raised his head, looked at the giant man with no expression on his face, and then with a sudden shake of his right hand holding the knife, he easily shook him away. How is this possible? Dickens involuntarily took a few steps back and looked at Cross in astonishment, almost unable to believe that his strength was not as strong as that of an underage kid. Suddenly, the windows of the nearby shops exploded, countless shattered glass splashed, and several black shadows struck like tentacles, as if they wanted to wrap Cross' body around. What is this? Cross frowned, stepped back abruptly, and slashed out without reservation, setting off a fierce wind of the sword visible to the naked eye. One-shot shock. Chapter 40 Glenn's Fairburn. Advertisement. Rumble. The astonishingly powerful blade wind erupted, like a small compressed storm, tearing apart several long black shadows like tentacles. And not only that, the powerful and fierce knife wind also pierced through the shop, plowing a deep and long ravine on the ground, and you can see the streets of the town from the coast of the port pier. Panicked people. Ahem, hey. Cross, you've gone too far. Colonel Moore looked at the astonishing scene in front of him, the thick dust filled the air, which made him cough several times, and complained involuntarily. Sorry Colonel, but these guys are after me. Cross squinted his eyes and glanced around. The invisible observation hockey spread like a radar detection wave, accurately capturing the person who attacked him just now. As one of the 3 types of hockey in the world of One Piece, observation hockey can sharpen the 5 senses, detect the breath and emotional changes of surrounding creatures, and can also be used to predict and avoid danger, and can even read the enemy's body outside the line of sight. The location, quantity, and the actions the other party will take in the next moment. Therefore, as long as the enemy who sneaked up just now does not escape the range of Cross's observation hockey perception, no matter how the opponent hides, he will not be able to escape Cross's pursuit. Good chance. Suddenly, seeing that the target in front of him turned his back on him, Dickens couldn't help being ecstatic, and quickly raised the long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand, and swept it across the middle of Cross. It's a pity that in front of observation hockey, who is like a biological radar detector, Dickens' every move is under surveillance. How could he be able to hide from Cross' eyes and ears, let alone sneak attack on Cross? At this moment, the heavy battle axe swung out, setting off the howling wind, but Cross didn't even hurt a single hair, and he dodged it. B*********** D thing, shave. Seeing this, Colonel Moore yelled angrily, and his figure suddenly disappeared in place. Not good. Finger pistol sharp. Dickens only felt a blur in front of his eyes, and found that Colonel Moore appeared in front of him almost out of thin air like a ghost, and the 10 hands made of pure steel were like a spear without a tip, stabbing at super high speed. Advertisement. Whew. At this moment, Dickens just raised the long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand, and felt a pain in his heart. The 10 hands without any sharp point stabbed into his heart abruptly, leaving a blood-stained part. Part of it protruded from the back, piercing his body directly. Dare to provoke Marine, court death. Colonel Moore gritted his teeth and looked at Dickens, who was close at hand. With his left hand resting on the end of 10 hands, he thrust 10 hands deeper into Dickens' body with both hands. How come? Dickens lowered his head slowly, looking at the position of his heart that had been pierced by 10 hands with unbelievable eyes. He wanted to fight back, but the strength in his body that could lift a small sailboat was quickly disappearing. He couldn't even lift the long-handled double-edged battle axe in his hand. Boom. Colonel Moore kicked Dickens fiercely in the abdomen, and then took advantage of the situation to pull out 10 hands from the opponent's body. Whoa. Dickens vomited blood, staggered back a few steps, and finally knelt down on the ground weakly, lowered his head, and completely lost his breath. Made. Seeing the other party die, Colonel Moore, who has always been elegant, stepped forward again, kicked the other party heavily, and couldn't help but swear, his gloomy complexion still didn't improve. Then, he looked aside, only to find that Cross had disappeared. Colonel Moore squinted his eyes and whispered to himself angrily, "Damn joker, these guys are obviously outlaws who will do everything for money, and they are not smuggling weapons and banned ecstasy % at all. Smugglers." On the other side, Cross appeared in a dark alley in the town, stood with a knife, and confronted a man with long hair. This person has a feminine face, a tall and thin figure, wearing a dark red suit, a beige shirt, and brown leather shoes, plus a head of black waist-length hair. If you don't recognize it carefully, you may think it is a woman. You look familiar. Have we met? Cross tilted his head, his gaze fell on the other's face. Advertisement. No, we haven't met. The long-haired man shook his head, and said in a flat tone, "But, you have seen my big brother, but he doesn't like long hair." "That's right, I'm sorry, I can't remember." Cross shrugged and said helplessly, "It's okay, an existence like you destined to become a big shot will naturally not remember a small character who died in your hands." The long-haired man said indifferently, "Don't say that, it makes me look like a murderer." Cross curled his lips in dissatisfaction, and said, "But after all, you came to seek revenge on me. I didn't say you were a murderer, who doesn't know that you are the hero of the kingdom of Tobias?" The long-haired man smiled softly, and said softly, "But it is not wrong to say that I am here for revenge. It's really overrated. Can you tell me your big brother's name, and your name?" "Don't worry, I will try my best to remember this time." Cross seemed a little shy, but said with a bit of murderous intent in his tone, "Thank you so much. My name is Glenn Fairburn. You definitely won't know him." As for my big brother, Glenn Capo, maybe you still have some impression of his name. If you want to don't get up, I can give you a hint, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Glenn's Capo. Listening to the two names reported by the other party, Cross felt that the former name was somewhat familiar, while the latter name was very strange. Oh, I remembered. Suddenly, Cross frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He found the origin of the name, Glenn's Capo, from his memory, and said coldly, "Who am I? No wonder you look familiar, so you are those human traffickers who have no humanity and deserve to be hacked to death." 3 years ago, when Cross was 12 years old, he was deceived by a group of human traffickers when he was playing in the city of Tobias' kingdom. Locked up. It's just that the group of human traffickers underestimated Cross's physique, and the ecstasy that can stun ordinary people for a whole day only lasted less than an hour on Cross's body. When Cross woke up, he found that he was locked in a dark and smelly cabin prison, and there were more than 20 women and children who were imprisoned with him. The most important thing is that those beautiful women have been violated, and even some children's hands and feet have been broken, and these women and children are simply not regarded as human beings. At that time, Cross became furious, and directly used brute force to tear off the iron fence of the prison. He rushed out alone, severely injured all 37 human traffickers on board, and then broke his limbs and threw them into the sea to feed the fish. As for why he remembered the name, Glenn's Capo, it was not only because it was the first time Cross killed people, but also because he killed 37 people at one time, and also because the other party was the only one who was not bad and reported his name leader of traffickers. Chapter 41. Advertisement. Humanity. He. After hearing what Cross said, the feminine man named Glenn's Fairburn couldn't help but smiled contemptuously, and said, "In this world, the weak and the strong prey on the strong, and there are many guys who call themselves gods, but what can they do? Things are not much better than demons, so how much is humanity worth? As human beings, they don't have humanity. No matter what they claim to be, they naturally don't deserve to be human." Cross said coldly with murderous intent in his eyes. "It's pointless to argue about this kind of thing. After all, you killed my big brother. I naturally want to seek revenge from you. It's a pity that you have already joined the Marine. I didn't take this last chance. I failed." Fairburn shook his head, unwilling to argue with Cross. "That's not necessarily true. Look, I'm here, maybe you can try harder and kill me as you wish." Cross stared at the long-haired man in front of him, and licked his dry lips. He, do you think I look like an idiot?" Fairburn shook his head with a smile, pointed at himself, and said, "I'm very timid, otherwise, I would have done it myself. There will be no rewards for you in the underground world of North Blue." "I probably guessed it." Cross was not surprised, because he had been assassinated by killers since he killed the gang of human traffickers, so he naturally guessed that the remnants of the traffickers were doing things. "In 3 years, I have increased the price from the initial 30 million Baileys to 80 million Baileys. There are countless people who have been assassinated, but none of them succeeded. I knew that if I came to trouble you alone, I would end up in trouble. It won't be any better." Fairburn spread his hands, and said in a resentful tone, "God is really unfair, to let a monster like you appear in the world, and you are only 15 years old. But this time, why did you do it yourself?" Cross asked in bewilderment. "With your strength and aptitude, you will soon be dropped into the naval headquarters, and then you will be valued and reused. I originally wanted to give up my hatred, and I didn't want to provoke the overlord of the sea for a dead person. I was just unwilling and wanted to try again. Once." Fairburn was very clear in his heart, and he spoke very clearly. "I see." Cross nodded, understanding what the other person was thinking. Now Cross is still an unknown recruit. If he dies in a mission, it means that he is nothing more than that, and naturally Marine will not make a big fuss about it. However, once Cross gained a firm foothold in Marine, his position continued to rise, his importance became more and more important, and then he was assassinated. Marine would naturally not let Fairburn, who dared to challenge Marine's dignity, be let go. "Guy. Hey, let's discuss." Suddenly, Fairburn said with a smile, "Before this assassination, I decided that if the assassination failed, I would give up continuing to assassinate you. So, I promise I won't come again in the future. How about letting me go?" Advertisement. "I don't think so much. There is a saying called cutting weeds and roots, have you heard of it? Besides, what I hate the most are human traffickers." With a cold face, Cross suddenly rushed out and stabbed the long-haired man in front of him. Hack away. The sharp blade cut across the air, like a ray of white light, illuminating the dark alley. "It's really bad luck." The long-haired man's expression changed slightly, and he quickly retreated, not wanting to be approached by Cross at all. At the same time, the long-haired man's long black hair floated up as if anti-gravity, and then stretched forward suddenly, like countless pitch-black tentacles, entangled towards the front with teeth and claws. Life returned. Cross looked shocked, and a male agent with long pink hair and a kabuki actor appeared in his mind. However, the movements in Cross's brain and hands are different from each other, and the movements are not slow at all. Immediately, he swung the Jingsho knife in front of him quickly, forming countless knife shadows, as if a knife net had been laid. Only the sound of chi was heard, and the long black hair that swarmed in was constantly smashed by the knife net, and the broken black hair all over the sky fluttered down, as if black snow had fallen. Seeing that his attack was useless, Fairburn, as if he felt sorry for his hair, retracted the long black hair, and then entangled it with each other, quickly forming tentacles like braids. Devil's hair 8-touch attack. The next second, Fairburn let out a low cry, and the 8 black-haired tentacles suddenly extended, piercing towards Cross like sharp arrows. One knife-style shock wave. Cross watched with cold eyes, holding the handle of the knife with both hands. Jingsho, the knife slashed out, drawing a semicircle in the air, creating a sharp wind of the knife visible to the naked eye. Rumble. In an instant, it seemed as if a small storm swept forward, crushing the 8 black-haired tentacles, tearing apart a deep semicircular gully along with the ground. Oh, damn it, advertisement. Fairburn let out a cry, and was then sent flying by the undiminished sharp blade wind, fell heavily several meters away, and hit a wall with a bang. I saw that Madara's unresolvable black-gray-red brick wall shook violently, and Fairburn knocked out a large spiderweb-shaped crack on the spot. Cough cough cough. Fairburn sat on the dirty ground full of sewage, coughed a few times in pain, and said distressedly, "My last chance for revenge has been lost. I have no hatred for you. As long as you let me go, I will revoke the reward from the underground world when I go back, and I will also deliver the 80 million Bailey reward to you as compensation for my harassment over the past 3 years. What do you think?" What? Cross grinned, raised his eyebrows involuntarily, and said sarcastically, "Do you think I'm an idiot?" As soon as the words fell, Cross stepped forward quickly, intending to give the opponent a final blow. Really, no one believes the truth now. Fairburn complained, stood up quickly from the ground, then stood up his black hair, and shook his head forward. Black needle chinbin black rain. Immediately, countless bursts of black hair, shoo shoo shoo, shot out, like 1,000 books in a ninja's hidden weapon, even faster than the rainstorm pear blossom needle in martial arts novels. One knife-style shock wave. Cross smiled contemptuously, then raised the Jingsho knife in his hand, and slashed fiercely forward. Rumble. The huge power combined with the swordsmanship of the Swordmaster realm, as if a small storm of fierce blade wind burst out again, sweeping away the black-haired chinbin that hit like a torrential rain. At the same time, Fairburn was blown away by the violent knife wind again, his clothes were torn, and he fell heavily on the ground, almost lying on the ground in a state of embarrassment in the dark brown sewage. Chapter 42 Explosion. Advertisement. Oh, will you know how to do this? Fairburn groaned in pain, and struggled to get up from the ground. Why, are these the last words? Cross approached slowly with a blank expression, hitting his shoulder with the back of the open black lens bracket Jingsho close black lens bracket knife from time to time. Well, since you don't want to let me live, then we can only die together. Fairburn looked at Cross with a helpless expression, and directly opened his dark red suit jacket, and saw that there was a circle of connected tubes tied around his stomach. Dynamite. Seeing this, Cross' face changed slightly, and he couldn't help but stop. That's right, 18 tubes of explosives, filled with the latest gunpowder. I got them from Joker. Blowing up this alley is easy. Fairburn grinned, and dangled the fuses of the explosives in front of Cross's eyes. Said, "By the way, Joker said you know him. Believe it or not, it's up to you." After finishing speaking, he pulled off the explosive fuse tied to his stomach, and then saw sparks burst out from the beige fuse, and burned quickly. Damn it! Cross cursed in a low voice, turned around and ran away decisively. No matter what the other party said was true or not, whether or not the 18 explosive tubes had that much power, it was still uncomfortable to be blown up. After all, he is not some old woman with a sweet tooth, nor is he some bull-headed gorilla named Lovely, he is just a preteen. At the same time, seeing Cross turn his head and run away, Fairburn hurriedly stood up and hurriedly untied the 18 explosive tubes connected together on his body. Run in the opposite direction. Cross's observation hockey noticed the abnormality, and couldn't help but stop and look behind him, only to see Fairburn running away in another direction with his back turned to him. Depend on. Cross cursed angrily, and just wanted to catch up, but found that the 18 connected explosive tubes that were originally tied to the opponent's stomach were actually lying on the ground, and the lead wire was almost at the end. Activation Earth. Cross, expression changed, he squatted down, pressed one hand on the ground, activated the ground with his ability, and then lifted it up with a bang, forming a huge raised mound in front of him. In the next second, the fuse burned to the end, and the gunpowder in the 18 explosive tubes was ignited at the same time. Advertisement. Bang. Immediately, 18 explosive tubes exploded, like a muffled thunder on a sunny day. Hot flames soared into the sky, submerging all the houses and buildings on both sides, and the shock waves generated by the explosion made the earth tremble. Cross felt the strong vibration of the ground under his feet, and the powerful explosion was unscrupulously destroying everything around him. Even he who was hiding behind the huge mound couldn't help feeling a little tight in his chest. After a while, when everything calmed down, Cross climbed to the top of the huge mound, and in front of him was a wide expanse of scorched earth and a scorched black pit with a diameter of more than 5 meters. Even the huge mound under his feet was almost destroyed. Half. The most important thing is that the nearby civilians also suffered heavy casualties. There are corpses, wailing wounded, and crying people everywhere. Ah, my eyes. I can't see. Mom, don't fall asleep. Doctor, someone, help my mother. Kill me soon, it hurts. Quote. With a livid face, Cross stared blankly at the tragic scene in front of him, and muttered to himself, how did this happen? Why did this happen? A strong sense of self-blame came flooding in, almost engulfing Cross's heart. If I let the other party go, all of this will not happen. After losing a few difficult guys, the Marines led by Colonel Moore immediately gained the upper hand. In addition, the 201st branch of Marine was only about 1 kilometer away from the town, and reinforcements arrived soon. Even Colonel Moore's deputy, Lieutenant Colonel Babbitt, dispatched warships from the naval port of the 201st Branch, and blocked the island's port to prevent any ships from entering or leaving. Then, because of the arrival of Marines' reinforcements, the battle at the port didn't last long and ended soon. More than 100 desperados were killed and injured nearly 100 people, and the rest were basically captured. Only a few escaped from the siege of Marine and fled to other places on the island. However, on the Marine side, the 200 sailors led by Colonel Moore also suffered heavy losses. Afterwards, 73 people were killed in battle, 28 were seriously injured, and 30 were slightly injured. Decree: the first level of martial law on Meek Island, all ships are not allowed to go to sea. With a cold face, Colonel Moore ordered loudly, in addition, send another 300 people, divided into 10 teams, to search other parts of the island, carrying red signal flares, and if anyone resists, shoot them to death. Advertisement. Yes, all the Marine officers and soldiers shouted in unison. Meek Island is not big, it is a small island, but the island also has complex terrain and mountains. If too few people are sent, it will be difficult to find those desperate thugs who escaped. However, there are risks for Colonel Moore to do so. After all, the 201st Branch has only 800 people, and has already suffered more than 100 casualties in the battle. By sending another 300 people, the force has been halved. Then there were less than 400 people left, not only to control the warship to block the port, but also to leave some troops to guard the stronghold of the 201st Branch, and to send people to maintain the law and order of the towns on the island and clean up the mess. The strength of the troops is already stretched. At this moment, Cross squatted at the corner of a street with a dazed expression, his eyes glazed over, looking at the busy crowd on the street, and he didn't know what he was thinking at all. But it can be seen that he is still immersed in self-blame and grief, and he attributes all the deaths and injuries of those innocent people to himself. What are you doing here? Suddenly, a familiar voice came, and Cross slowly looked up, and found Colonel Moore standing aside. Those people were all killed by me. Cross bit his lip, buried his head in his arms, and said in a muffled voice, if I let that guy go, he won't ignite the powerful explosives in the town. Quote. Idiot. Colonel Moore's face was livid, and he interrupted Cross directly, cursing, are you an idiot? Since the guy who attacked you has already ignited the explosives, why didn't you continue to chase after him until you caught or killed him? To kill each other, to avenge those innocent people who were killed or injured. Cross suddenly raised his head, stared blankly at Colonel Moore in front of him, couldn't help showing a painful expression, covered his face and cried, I forgot. My mind is full of pictures of the deaths and injuries of those innocent people. I forgotten. Cry. Colonel Moore sternly shouted. Do you think letting that guy go saves innocent people? No, although I don't know who that B********** D is, I can tell from his methods that he is definitely a man with hands full of innocent people. Bloody villains. Even if you were merciful today, let that B******** D go, didn't let the explosion happen, and protected the innocent people in front of you, is that justice? Wrong. Big mistake. After that B******* D survives, he will only hurt more innocent people in other places. Upholding justice has never been an easy task. When dealing with evil people, we should resolutely and decisively eliminate them. No matter how much sacrifice is made, as long as the opponent is eliminated, then all sacrifices will be worth it. If you are afraid of other people's sacrifices like you, if you are afraid of hurting others, so you let go of the blood-stained villains, then other people's sacrifices and bloodshed are really in vain. So, if you don't have the courage and mental preparation to face all this, you'd better quit Marine as soon as possible, naive brat. Chapter 43. Advertisement. Somewhere off the coast of Meek Island. A scorched and ragged guy was running staggeringly in the woods, leaving an intermittent line of blood behind him. Finally, he ran to a beach and stopped, and fell to the ground exhausted. Gululu. Suddenly, bubbles appeared on the surface of the sea, and a head with dark brown Madara stripes emerged, moving towards the beach, gradually revealing the whole body. This is a man with a mouth full of sharp teeth, wearing a dark blue windbreaker, with an octopus tattoo on his bare chest. He is clearly a hybrid of a human and a murloc. Mr. Fairburn, it's the first time I've seen you in such a mess. The half-fishman said in surprise when he saw Fairburn's miserable state. Cough cough cough. Fairburn coughed up blood, and urged weakly, stop rambling, Derudo, hurry up and bring the boat over, Marine might catch up soon. I see. The murloc named Derudo nodded, turned around and dived into the water, disappearing into the sea. Boo 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 boo. Suddenly, the call of the phone number sounded in Fairburn's arms. He looked down, then pulled off his tattered scorched black suit, and took out a small phone bug from his arms. Click. It's me, Fairburn. Foo 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 foo. Hearing the voice, you seem to be in a bad mood. Are you here to laugh at me? Joker. Foo 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 foo. I'm not that boring. However, the result was as you expected. I failed and escaped by relying on 18 explosive tubes. Are you proud now? Okay, you octopus, I'm not bored to this extent. When you come back safely, let's talk about the next cooperation. Cooperation? It's not impossible. Anyway, I don't intend to mess with that guy anymore. Let me think about the cooperation before replying to you. Foo 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 foo. Of course it's no problem. After all, you are suffering a big failure now, so naturally you need to recover properly. Whole Joker, still didn't mock me. Advertisement. Foo 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 foo, I'm really sorry, I just gloated a little, and finally I'm not alone in the hands of that brat. To shut up. Click. Fairburn hung up the phone angrily, and kicked the sand in front of him hard. Gurgling. Gurgling. Suddenly, countless bubbles emerged from the sea, and a huge shadow appeared, as if a monster from the bottom of the sea had floated up. Fairburn looked up, and saw a jet-black fusiform object floating out of the sea, with a metallic luster under the sunlight. It turned out to be a small submarine with a length of more than 10 meters. It's time to go, let's stop with hatred. My dear big brother, it's time for me to say goodbye to you. Marine Branch 201. Justice is never a simple matter. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. If you take life too seriously, you will be useless. If you take life too lightly, you will only degenerate into a devil. Close black lens bracket. No one can stop the passing of life, and what you have to do is not to disappoint the death of these innocent lives. Only by enduring these can you become a real sailor. Close black lens bracket. On the top floor of the stone fortress, Cross was lying on the wall stack, looking at the distant sea, still thinking about Colonel Moore's words in his mind. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary person, and he had never killed a chicken, let alone a person. After rebirth, he not only killed people, but also killed many people, but they were all bad people without exception. It is also because of this that he, who is born with great strength, can punish and eliminate evil without much effort. When the bad guys come, they can be killed. The bad guys are coming, hack them to death. The bad guy came and kicked him to death. Under the overwhelming strength, why did he let a young man with the three views and heart of ordinary people experience sacrifices, bloodshed and responsibilities? A real strong person is not only strong in strength, but also in heart. So, Cross is now at a critical juncture, and if he passes it, his heart will be able to match and control his own monster talent. If he can't make it through, then he is at most just an empty shell with no strength, and he will be far from reaching the world's peak level in the future. He can only bully those weaker than himself for the rest of his life. Of course, there is another possibility, that is to go to a certain extreme. Just like what Colonel Moore said, if you take life too seriously, you will only become an indecisive waste, and you will never be able to become truly powerful. Advertisement. However, if you take life too lightly, then a terrifying demon will be born in the sea, and even the best result is to become a person like Rob Lucci, who believes that weakness is the original sin, will advocate the necessary evil, and pursue dark justice. Obviously, Colonel Moore also understood this, so he didn't say too much, but just said some things for Cross to think about. After all, if he said too much, he would destroy a very talented genius, or create a demon who pursued dark justice. Both of these are not what Colonel Moore wants to see. Cross, the interrogation is over, that group of people are indeed coming for you. Suddenly, Colonel Moore came behind Cross, holding many sheets of paper full of words in his hand. I know. Cross turned around slowly, leaned against the rock wall, and said lightly, the person who attacked me later was called Glenn's Fairburn, and his code name in the underground world should be Octopus. He is also the guy who offered me a reward of 80 million Baileys. That's right, the man and woman you knocked down were a bounty hunter combination called Knife and Gun, but they were only identities on the surface, and they were also working as killers, human traffickers, smugglers and other professions in secret. As long as you give money, they both do everything. Octopus, Glenn Fairburn is one of their collaborators. Colonel Moore explained. In addition, the ship with the flag of the Jimmy Chamber of Commerce, the merchant ship, was robbed halfway by that group, and the purpose was to sneak into Meek Island and find a chance to kill you. No way. A 15-year-old child has a reward of 80 million Baileys in the underground world, which is much higher than the rewards of most pirates in North Blue, so it will naturally attract the attention of countless people. But, within 5 days of joining Marine, a large number of people came to kill me. Glenn Fairburn's intelligence ability is really strong. Cross said in a deep voice. I'm also wondering, I didn't expect a mere human trafficker to have such a powerful intelligence network, and he could gather more than 100 strong desperados within 5 days, and kill them quickly. Colonel Moore didn't change his face. Said. I thought I could do meritorious deeds, but I didn't expect that they came for me, and I killed so many people. Gritting his teeth, Cross punched the wall angrily. Of course you have done something. Colonel Moore glanced at Cross, and said in a shocking voice, I was just joking just now. I have ordered the execution of all the captive thugs, because those thugs did not come for you. Those guys are all arms dealers who illegally smuggled arms. What, Colonel Moore, are you joking? Cross looked at Colonel Moore in surprise. Little devil, let me teach you another lesson. Colonel Moore glanced at Cross, and said with a serious expression, if those thugs are coming for you, then we don't have much credit, and even the families of the sailors who died in battle and the injured sailors will resent you. Moreover, the inspection team sent by the headquarters will intervene and come to the 201 branch to search for any ghosts. If a group of arms dealers who illegally smuggle arms are caught, then branch 201 will make great contributions. Those sailors who died or were injured will be rewarded, and those who participated in the battle will also make meritorious service or be promoted. Speaking of which, Colonel Moore looked at the stunned Cross with some deep meaning, and said in a deep voice, you don't want to be promoted, you don't want credit, it's understandable, but it doesn't mean that other people don't want to. Remember, there is more than just fighting and killing in the sea, there are also people who know the world. After all, others don't have your strength. Every time they fight, they risk their lives to fight. Chapter 1 Pelusalino. Advertisement. Grand Line, a sea area. I've been away from you for 100 weeks, and I'm coming back here to look for us. Bah, we're crossing paths. The huge first-class warship sailed on the sea, cutting through the waves and moving forward quickly with the help of the wind. Cross sat cross-legged on the bow deck, shaking his head and blowing the comfortable sea breeze, looking in the direction of North Blue. It was his 10th day away from North Blue, the 201st branch, and his 3rd day at the Grand Line. And in these 3 days, Cross also saw why the Grand Line is called the Magic Sea. The geomagnetism, celestial phenomena, ocean currents, and air currents are all chaotic. It rains, snows, strong winds, strong sun. All kinds of the weather took turns, making people completely confused, and even the seamanship he had learned in North Blue was almost useless. In addition, what he was standing on was a warship from Naval Headquarters. It was going to North Blue to perform a mission. When it returned, it came to the 201st branch of Meek Island, took Cross along the way, and returned to Naval Headquarters together. It's so leisurely, I'm so envious. If you could stand up and say that, it would convince me a little bit, Pelusolino Vice Admiral. Slow teasing rang in his ears, making Cross cast an annoyed glance at the man leaning on the sun lounger next to him. Short black hair, a little curly, wearing a black top hat, with a cigarette in his mouth, tall and thin, wearing a gray striped suit, a blue tie and a black shirt, a pair of black gloves are placed on the round table next to him. Superior. Pelusolino. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Admiral Alternate. It's so scary, don't the kids nowadays know how to respect seniors? Pelusolino pouted, and said slowly. Then you are wrong, Senior Pelusolino, I just want Senior to be more diligent and stop sleeping on the sun lounger all day. Cross deliberately emphasized the word, Senior. Please forgive me, I was in North Blue to catch a terrible big pirate, but I worked day and night for a long time before I completed the task. Now I just have a short break in my busy schedule. Pelusolino said from the round table next to him. He picked up a glass of juice with ice cubes and drank it leisurely. Advertisement. Hey, it's really well founded and convincing. Cross curled his lips, echoing insincerely. To say that Pelusolino went to North Blue was indeed to hunt down a big pirate, and the story began with the legendary Golden Lion, Shaki and his flying pirate group. Golden Lion, Shaki is the captain of the Flying Pirates, the admiral of the Golden Lion Pirates fleet, and also has the titles of Flying Pirates and Lion Ghost. In the past, he was as famous as One Piece, Gordy Luogia and Open Black Lens Bracket Whitebeard Close Black Lens Bracket Edward Newgate. Long before the beginning of the Great Pirate Era, Shaki wanted to rule the world and wanted to join forces with Galdi Luogia, who had not yet become One Piece but was rejected by Luogia. Therefore, Shaki became furious and led the Golden Lion pirate fleet to a fierce battle with the Luogia pirate group led by Luogia in the 8-volume sea area. Later, this battle was known as the Battle of 8 Wall. However, the result of this war was very dramatic. Originally, the flying pirates led by Shaki had the upper hand and almost wiped out the Luogia pirates. The fierce fighting between the two sides was broken. It was a huge storm that was rare in 100 years, and it directly drove half of the ships of the Golden Lion fleet into the bottom of the sea. Even Shaki himself was stuck on top of his head by a rudder. So far, there is no safe way to take it down. It is also because of the Battle of 8 Wall and the huge storm that the strength of the flying pirates was greatly damaged, and they lost the power to fight for the hegemony of the world. Attack. Later, before the strength of the flying pirates recovered, Galdi Luogia completed the voyage of the Grand Line, conquered the Grand Line, and reached the top of One Piece. Later, Luogia surrendered to Naval Headquarters, and Marine claimed to have captured Luogia. Hearing the news of Luogia's arrest, Shaki couldn't believe that Galdi Luogia, whom he considered his opponent, would be caught by Marine anyway, so he entered Naval Headquarters Marineford single-handedly, killed a large number of Marines, and then fought with Marine Admiral Sengoku and Marine Hero Monkey D. Garp battle. In the end, the battle between the three lasted for 3 days, and half of the town buildings in Naval Headquarters Open Black Lens Bracket Marineford Close Black Lens Bracket were destroyed. Open Black Lens Bracket Golden Lion Close Black Lens Bracket Shaki was defeated and imprisoned in the world's largest prison, Impel Down Open Black Lens Bracket Imperton Close Black Lens Bracket. It is precisely because of the loss of Golden Lion, Shaki that the flying pirates, which were already greatly weakened, were immediately besieged by Marine and other major pirates. All cadres died, were captured, disappeared, or took refuge in other pirates. The pirates soon fell apart. Advertisement. Who knows that in the past few years, Golden Lion, Shaki who was imprisoned in Impel Down, Impelton, actually escaped from prison, escaped from Impel Down, Imperton, and then found that his flying pirates were gone. Yes, after New World met Whitebeard Edward Newgate once, they disappeared. Until the beginning of this year, the intelligence personnel of the Marine Intelligence Division accidentally found one of the main cadres of the flying pirates on an island in the first half of the Grand Line, Mobile Fortress Thres with a bounty of 490 million Bailey's Special, Paramesha, Acceleration Fruit, Ability User. So Naval Headquarters sent Pelusolino to catch him. As a result, the opponent was very good at running. Under the pursuit of Pelusolino, he ran all the way to North Blue from the first half of the Grand Line. But it is a pity that the cadre of the flying pirates still failed to escape, and was finally blocked by Pelusolino on an island in North Blue. The Seastone prison on the bottom floor is being imprisoned, and it is ready to be sent to Impel Down, Impelton, to be imprisoned. It's just that Cross spent 10 days on this warship, and has long been familiar with the sailors on board, and learned from them that although the arrest operation took several months, it did not toil day and night, as Pelusolino said. You must know that the first half of the Grand Line and the Four Seas belong to the world government and marine territory. Pelusolino's warships have many world government alliance countries and various branches of marine to stop along the way, and there is also a marine intelligence department. The secret Cipher Pol CIPHERPOL organization directly under the world government provides intelligence assistance. On the contrary, because the cadre of the flying pirates was not good at disguising, every time he went to an island or a kingdom, he would be discovered soon, thus attracting Pelusolino's pursuit, and then he could only keep running for his life, day and night terrified. In this way, the two sides fled and chased each other. Pelusolino chased each other like a dog for more than 3 months. Suffering and suffering can only be the one locked up. Boo 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 boo. Suddenly, there was a call of a phone bug, which came from Pelusolino. Oh, really? There shouldn't be another mission. Pelusolino pursed his lips, raised his hand unhappily, and shouted at the black phone bug on his wrist. Moshi Moshi, I'm Pelusolino. Chapter 2 Sengoku's Value. Advertisement. Moshi Moshi, I'm Pelusolino. Very strange. Moshi, Moshi, it's so strange. Pelusolino yelled at the black phone bug on his wrist, but found that there was no response, and the phone bug, Boru Bolu, still rang again, which made him very distressed. On the side, Cross watched Pelusolino's actions, his hair was full of black lines, and he couldn't help reminding, poor Solino Vice Admiral, that's a phone bug for wiretapping. Pelusolino was stunned for a moment, carefully looked at the black phone bug on his wrist, and couldn't help showing an expression of sudden realization, then scratched the back of his head, and said with an embarrassed smile, I actually made a mistake, thank you so much. After speaking, he quickly put down his hands, groped around for a while, and finally found a phone bug that was barking, Bolu Bolu, from his arms. Click. Moshi Moshi, I'm Pelusolino. Pelusolino picked up the microphone on the back of the phone bug, still talking slowly and beating. The next second, a slightly angry voice came from the microphone. What the hell, Pelusolino, why did you answer the phone now? Pelusolino recognized who the voice was, still pouted, and said unhurriedly, Mr. Sengoku, I just didn't find the phone bug. UB ***************, D, are you yelling at the black phone bug on your wrist for bugging again? Apparently, Admiral Sengoku on the other side of the phone bug knew Pelusolino well about his constant misuse of the black phone bug. It's scary, Mr. Sengoku, did you plant a surveillance phone bug next to me, or planted a spy? Did you report it to Mr. Sengoku? Little Cross. But Pelusolino didn't care, instead he winked at Cross next to him in a teasing manner. TCH. Advertisement. Cross rolled his eyes and turned his head in disdain. UB ***********, D, stop talking nonsense. Sengoku, who was far away in naval headquarters, almost didn't die of anger, but he held back his anger and said in a deep voice, now there is an urgent task for you to deal with, you should go to Carl Island immediately, Kuzan will meet you there. Carl Island. I remember, City of Sculpture, Skorky is there, it's really troublesome. Pelusolino said with some headaches, it seems that Kuzan and I are joining forces. What a trouble. A few days ago, a big event happened in New World. Piercing Lord, Vlad Aren rejected Charlotte Linlin's tea party invitation, which caused the woman to be furious, and directly led the BIGMOM pirates expedition. There was a big battle between the pirates and the pirates. Sengoku said in a concentrated voice. It's so scary, such a big thing happened in New World. Pelusolino said slightly surprised. The battlefield between the piercing pirates and the BIGMOM pirates was on Cullen Island. The two sides fought for a day, and finally the piercing pirates were defeated. Vlad Aren was severely injured by Charlotte Linlin. Sengoku Shen voice said. Later, in order to get rid of the pursuit of the BIGMOM pirates, the defeated piercing pirates asked their shipbuilders to apply coating urgently, and traveled from the bottom of the sea to the first half of the Grand Line. It's terrible, Pelusolino exclaimed exaggeratedly. Vlad Aren is defeated, that woman Charlotte Linlin is really as strong as ever. According to the news from the intelligence department, the piercing pirates suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Cullen Island. Except for Vlad Aren himself who was seriously injured by Charlotte Linlin, most of the other cadres died because of Charlotte Linlin. In the hands of Linlin's children, and the fleet of the piercing pirates was too urgent when coating, in the end only the punking pirate ship returned to the first half of the Grand Line, and the other 4 ships were buried in the deep sea. Sengoku's tone was a little dignified, but also a little excited. So, according to the discussion at the naval headquarters meeting, we need to seize this opportunity and wipe out the piercing pirates in the first half of the Grand Line. I see, the piercing pirates will land on Carl Island to resupply. What a headache, it's scary to ask me to face Vlad Aren, that guy is from Charlotte Linlin the monster that escaped from his hand. Pelusolino said slowly, shaking his head. Sengoku, on the other end of the phone bug, ignored Pelusolino's complaints and asked, okay, is Infiltrating Cross next to you? Here, Pelusolino stretched the phone bug forward. Sengoku Admiral. At the same time, upon hearing his own name, Cross quickly stood up and answered with a serious expression. Cross, you are a recruit and a student who is about to enter the Marine School. You should not be allowed to participate in such things as the siege and suppression of the piercing pirates, but your ability can play a big role in Sculpture City, Skokie, so I hope you can participate in this battle. Of course, this is not a mandatory order, even if you refuse, I can understand. Sengoku said in a negotiating tone. Advertisement. It is indeed too much for a recruit who has just joined the Marine to participate in the war to encircle and suppress a big pirate, so Sengoku did not use the identity of Marine Admiral to directly issue orders, but followed Cross wishes in a negotiating tone. Sengoku Admiral, I am a righteous sailor, so naturally I will not turn a blind eye to the evil in front of me. I will do my best to destroy all the pirates I see. Cross didn't feel any fear, even eager to try, loudly facing Sengoku % assured. Very good, Marine is lucky to have you. Sengoku said loudly with great satisfaction. When this battle is over, your achievements will be recorded, and when you graduate from Marine School, you will officially join the Marine as an officer. Thank you Sengoku Admiral, Cross thanked in a deep voice. That's it, you will be under Pelusalino's command for the time being, and follow his instructions. Sengoku ordered. Understood, Cross echoed. Pelusalino. Here, Mr. Sengoku. I'll leave Cross to you. His abilities are very useful. Be sure to keep him safe. It's really. Click. Hearing Sengoku's order, Pelusalino scratched the back of his head and looked at Cross with some displeasure, but before he could finish his complaint, the phone bug had already hung up. Well, it's really troublesome. Pelusalino put away the phone bug with a bitter face. Pelusalino Vice Admiral, I'm strong, don't worry about me. Cross patted his chest and said, feeling underestimated. That's right, that's really reliable. Pelusalino smoked a cigarette, exhaled slowly, and asked, however, I didn't know that Little Cross is also a capable person, since Mr. Sengoku thinks highly of you. If you don't have the ability, then we will call the generals on the warship and hold an impromptu meeting to discuss your ability. Chapter 3, City of Sculpture, Skagi, Part 1. Advertisement. 2 days later, Carl Island open black lens bracket City of Sculpture close black lens bracket Skokie. This is a city directly under the jurisdiction of the world government. Most of the officials are elected by the local area, and a small part is appointed by the world government. The annual tax is also handed over to the world government. Of course, this is also a very famous city. From the title of City of Sculpture, we can know that this is a holy place for sculpture artists from all over the world. Various types of statues can be seen in various places and corners of the city. Wood carvings, stone carvings, metal statues, humans, murlocs, knights, beasts, demons, all kinds of statues are available. In the bustling, V-shaped port, Marines 2 first-class warships and 4 second-class warships gathered, all moored in the port. It was rare to see so many Marine warships, and the people on the port could not help talking about it, which aroused various speculations. Some people think that this Marine fleet is just a temporary stop. Some people think that a certain big pirate must have come to Carl Island, which is why so many Marine warships are attracted. Some people also think that maybe there are important figures from the Marine or world government coming to inspect, and this Marine fleet is here to escort. Anyway, there are all kinds of guesses, and there are not a few weird rumors. However, the Marine generals gathered here are not in the mood to pay attention to the public speculation, because Marine contacted the city government of Sculpture City, Skokie, and the generals and academies on the 6 warships are in the tax office building of the port. A meeting in a conference room. More than 20 Marine generals gathered together, all of them sat in the spacious conference room with serious expressions, and then watched a tall man walk up to the podium. Allah, I will chair this meeting due to Sengoku Admiral's order. It's inevitable that some newcomers don't know me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kuzan, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Logia Frozen Fruit Ability User. The speaker has fluffy hair, is wrapped in a blue-purple turban with Marine Seagull logo, wears small round eyes, is wearing a black coat, also has Marine Seagull logo on the chest, and inside is a blue-purple t-shirt, wearing a Vice Admiral's coat of justice. Kuzan. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Admiral Alternate. Advertisement. Cross raised his head and looked at the man in front of him, only to see that the man smiled gently at him. He knew that this man was taking care of him, otherwise, among the Marine generals present, how could anyone not know this powerful man? You must know that in this conference room, headed by Kuzan and Pelusalino, 2 Naval Headquarters Vice Admirals, High gathered 4 Rear Admirals, 2 Commodores, and more than 10 Colonels, and only he had no military rank. Recruit. However, Cross looked around and found that many of the more than 20 Marine generals present were acquaintances, but these acquaintances did not know him. Immediately afterwards, Kuzan watched the audience quiet down, took out 3 reward orders from his arms, and pasted them on the whiteboard behind him. On the reward order in the middle, there is a man with a handsome face, sharp eyes, long blonde hair, a golden crown on his head, wearing a black coat embroidered with gold trim, a red plaid long-sleeved shirt, and a dark red cloak. On the reward order on the right, there is a man grinning maniacally. He is strong and muscular. He is bare-chested, wearing red trousers, and has a golden belt of a gladiatorial champion around his waist. On the reward order on the left, there is a person with expressionless face, indifferent eyes, short black hair, wearing a white coat, and holding a scalpel in his hand. According to the insider report that the CP organization placed in the Piercing Pirates and the BIGMOM Pirates suffered heavy losses after the battle on Cullen Island. They only had 1 Piercing pirate ship and more than 700 pirates returned to the first half of the Grand Line. Among them, with a bounty of 762 million berry, the captain of the Piercing Pirates, the Paramesha Thorn Fruit Ability User, Piercing Lord, Vlad Aren, and 2 surviving main cadres. Speaking of this, Kuzan looked serious, pointed to the reward order posted on the whiteboard, and continued, Gladiator Ali Baka, the captain of the piercing pirate battle, Paramesha muscular fruit ability user, bounty 588 million Baileys. This person was born in West Blue, and is the perennial champion of gladiatorial competitions in the underground world. He is a great pirate who is second only to Vlad Aren in strength. The polluter, Bel Von Gyro, the ship doctor of the piercing pirates, Paramesha, the person with the ability to anesthetize the fruit, with a bounty of 375 million Baileys. This person was originally a doctor of the world government, with superb medical skills, but he likes to study poisons and the plague, once released the plague virus to a country, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people, just to experiment with their own research results. Listening to Kuzan's introduction, there was an uproar in the meeting room. The marine generals present were either angry, fearful, or terrified, with various reactions. However, the piercing pirates deserved to be a well-known pirate group in New World. Even if they suffered a big defeat and only had two main cadres left, they still could not be underestimated. After listening to Kuzan's introduction, Cross also understood why Naval Headquarters sent two powerful vice admirals at the level of Admiral Alternate. It's so scary, they're all monsters. Advertisement. Pelusolino pouted, slowly showing his fear, but he didn't show any fear at all. However, the generals present were not surprised at all. This time, there is a reason why we chose Carl Island as the battlefield. It is because the many sculptures in the City of Sculptures, Skokie, can help us. Cross, tell everyone about your abilities. Kuzan looked at Cross, who was sitting in the farthest corner, and raised his hand to signal him to stand up. Cross stood up, met the eyes of many generals, walked to the podium unhurriedly, and introduced himself with a smile. Sirs, I am a recruit who just joined Marine, Amphitheater Cross, please give me your support. Care. I said why a child came in. What's the use of those statues that don't move? Recruit, is it a special ability user? Quote. Seeing that Cross was only an underage child, the generals present couldn't help discussing with each other. Cross didn't care about everyone's comments, and stood on the podium and said to himself, I am a Paramesha living fruit ability user. I can activate all the sculptures in Sculpture City, Skokie, and turn them into giants. Soldiers who are afraid of death, in the battle to encircle and suppress the piercing pirates, these living sculptures can serve as vanguards, minimizing casualties. Nani, do you still have such ability? Really? If it is true, that would be great. No wonder Naval Headquarters chose Carl Island as their battlefield, it's really a perfect battlefield. Quote. Immediately, the Marine generals present looked at Cross excitedly, talking excitedly. Chapter 4, City of Sculpture, Skokie, Part 2. Advertisement. It's really a city full of art. City of Sculpture, in the city of Skokie, Cross was walking on the bustling and spacious streets, looking around excitedly, admiring the exotic wind, and reaching out from time to time to caress the various sculptures erected on the street. Apart from the local residents, many of the crowded people on the street are tourists from other places, or sculpture artists from all over the world, all of whom come here admiringly. Even on both sides of the street, there are artists sitting cross-legged on the clean rock floor and carving with a piece of stone or wood. There are old and young, men and women, full of strong artistic atmosphere. Tisk tisk, if these things come to life suddenly, it would be really scary. Pelusolino changed into a casual white long-sleeved shirt, wore a pair of yellow sunglasses, and held a cigarette in his mouth. He walked with 3 steps and 3 shakes, not at all like a high-ranking Naval Headquarters vice admiral, more like a street punk. Cross glanced at the other party speechlessly, then stretched out his hand to touch a stone statue of a knight, with a sudden unbearable expression on his immature face, hesitatingly said, Mr. Pelusolino, we really do you want to start a war on this island? Pelusolino pulled down the sunglasses on his face, looked at Cross seriously, and said slowly, I know what you think, little Cross, but the sea is vast, and the chance of us blocking each other in the sea is too small, the only certainty is that the piercing pirates will come to Carl Island for resupply. But, can't we notify the residents on the island in advance and let them leave temporarily? Cross frowned and asked suspiciously. Carl Island is huge, and the Marine has no way to monitor the entire island. This is a necessary sacrifice for the execution of justice. Pelusolino said lightly. What's more, there are hundreds of thousands of residents on the island, whether it is Marine or world the government does not have the capacity to move everyone away in a short period of time, and it will only cause greater chaos. However, we will try our best to place the battlefield outside the city on the plains, forests, or on the coast, and after discovering the piercing pirates, we will organize innocent people to go to a safe place on the island to minimize casualties. Uncharacteristically, Pelusolino did not use a slightly teasing tone, but his tone was more flat, even indifferent. Cross fell silent, looking at the bustling scene in the city in front of him, feeling an indescribable depression in his heart. He understood what Pelusolino said, but he couldn't accept it for a while. After all, he is from Blue Star, a country of peace, so naturally he cannot be like Pelusolino and other Marine generals, who can put the battlefield on an island with a population of hundreds of thousands without changing his face, and ignore the generals of the war, caused casualties. Advertisement. Then, Pelusolino showed a beating smile again, stretched his finger forward, and said slowly, Little Cross, if you can revive that giant dragon, it will definitely scare many people. Cross looked in the direction of Pelusolino's finger, and only saw a large square in front of him. In the center of the square, there was a giant dragon sculpture about 20 meters long, the whole body was black. Under the sunlight, there is a metallic luster, like a sculpture made of pure metal. I saw that the black dragon sculpture had a puma-like body, 2 huge bat wings, 4 legs and a horse-like head with horns on top of the head, scales on the body, long and winding tail with thorns at the end. Each leg, the ends of the claws are all huge claws, presenting a roaring posture, lifelike and majestic. There were many people in the square, as if they had come here specially for the black dragon sculpture, and they all watched excitedly, and even took out their cameras and used their phone bugs to take pictures. I remember that it was the work of a master. It is the treasure of City of Sculpture, Skagi. It is priceless. Pelusalino looked at Cross gloatingly. Ahem. Cross straightened his expression, cleared his throat, and said seriously, for the sake of justice, it's just a sculpture, and I don't think it's a big deal. I believe the mayor of Sculpture City, Skorky, and the people will understand. Quote. It's so scary. If this black dragon comes back to life, it will be a nightmare for ordinary people. Pelusalino pouted and said, don't worry, Naval Headquarters and Mr. Sengoku will take care of the rest. All right. Cross didn't speak, but with joy flashing in his eyes, he walked forward quickly. A giant dragon made of pure metal is almost invulnerable. Even a less powerful swordsman can't cut it, let alone an ordinary person. It is definitely a perfect weapon of war on the battlefield. Pelusalino looked at Cross's back with a smile, and was about to follow up slowly, when a mysterious man wearing a black suit, black trousers, black leather boots, and black top hat suddenly stepped out from the crowd and stopped him. Out of his way. Poor Salino Vice Admiral, there is something I need to report to you. You are a member of the CP organization, and you have been following me. How scary. Looking at the mysterious man in a black suit, Pelusalino didn't show a surprised expression, just teasing him every day. I'm an agent of CP-8 Fairy. The CP agent who called himself Fairy said in a deep voice. Not long ago, we lost contact with the undercover agent we placed in the Piercing Pirates. His code name is Shotgun. He has been found. Advertisement. Yo, that's really a terrible thing. Pelusalino said with a serious expression, if it's true, I'm afraid Vlad Aren has already guessed that our marine will be on the island. It's an ambush. An hour ago, a huge ship is sailing in the waters of Carlo Carl Island. The bow is shaped like a long black spike, and a black flag is hung on the main mast. The pattern on it is a white skull pierced by black spikes. Red, the sails of the ship have the same pattern. This is a pirate ship no less than a first-class marine, but the huge red sails on 3 sides are a little tattered, and there are more or less bullet holes and cracks on both sides of the hull, obviously after a big battle. My lord, I saw land. It should be Carlo Carl Island. On the watchtower at the top of the main mast, a watchman put down his binoculars, leaned on the guardrail and shouted down. Crunch. Ahem. It's here. The door of the captain's cabin opened, and a black-haired man with a pale face came out, coughing twice into the black handkerchief in his hand from time to time. This person has a handsome face, a tall figure, nearly 3 meters tall, about 40 years old, a golden crown on his head, long golden hair tied simply with a black headband, wearing a black coat embroidered with gold trim and red A-plaid long-sleeved shirt with a crimson cloak and a pattern of black spikes running through a white skull on the back. The captain of the Piercing Pirates, Paramesha Thorn Fruit Ability User, Piercing Lord, Vlad Aren. Bounty. 762 million berry. Chapter 5 Piercing the Pirates Part 1. Advertisement. My Lord Duke. It's all right, Your Excellency the Duke. Quote. At this time, many pirates came to the deck from the lower cabins, and greeted Vlad Aren one after another, or sent out worried greetings. I'm fine, don't be impatient. Yulin smiled reluctantly, and waved his hands to signal his subordinates to disperse. Then, Aren passed through the crowd and went straight to the deck at the bow, looking at the land in the distance. Not long after, a bald man with a height of more than 4 meters came over. His body was muscular, his upper body was bare, he was wearing red trousers, and he had a golden belt of a gladiatorial champion around his waist. Port. Don't enter the port, find another place to dock. Aren shook his head, and said softly, Baka, Marine must know about the news of our defeat in New World. If we are exposed in the paradise, Marine will definitely be encircled and suppressed. My Lord Duke, if you dare to come here, I will blow their heads off. The strong man called. Baka looked proud, raised his arms like a flower peacock, clenched his fists, and showed looking at his strong biceps. The battle captain of the Piercing Pirates, Paramesha Muscle Fruit Ability User, Gladiator Ali Baka. Bounty. 588 million Baileys. Paradise is Marine's territory. They can mobilize heavy troops at any time, and we are now greatly weakened, so there is no need to conflict with Marine. Once we have replenished our supplies and stored our magnetic power, we should leave quickly. Yulin slowly said. My lord, I'm afraid we won't be able to get away once we reach Carlo Carl Island. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded, and both Wulin and Baka turned their heads to look at the same time, only to see a middle-aged man in a white coat with short black hair, expressionless face, indifferent eyes, and dragging his hands. Pulling a man. The man was blood-stained, tall and thin, wearing a short-sleeved white shirt and black trousers, but like a patient with muscle weakness, his body was out of control, and he could only be dragged all the way to the bow. Advertisement. Jiro, what's wrong? Yulin knew that the man dragged by the other party was his subordinate or the leader level. Bang. The man called. Ji Luo walked up to Ren with a blank expression, and threw the man in his hand on the deck at the bow of the ship, and then threw a small blue phone bug on the deck together. On the other side, he slowly opened his mouth and said, This guy is a spy. I just heard him from below reporting to Marine that we are about to arrive at Carlo Carl Island. Former World Government Special Doctor, Piercing Pirates Ship Doctor, Paramesha Anesthesia Fruit Ability, Polluted, Belvon Gyro. Bounty. 375 million Baileys. Spy. Vlad Aren and Ali Baka's expressions changed suddenly, and they looked at the man lying on the ground unable to move in disbelief. The two of them didn't expect that there would be a spy placed by Marine on their ship. Doesn't this mean that every move of the Piercing Pirates is under the control of Marine and the world government? My Lord Duke, turn around. Jiro said in a deep voice, Marine may have been ambushed on Carlo Carl Island. If we continue to go there, it will be tantamount to falling into Marine's trap. Ali Baka is not an idiot either. He naturally knew the seriousness of the matter. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed the man's neck on the ground with one hand, and asked angrily, B*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** spit. The spy smiled contemptuously, and spat hard, but he seemed unable to control his body, and none of the spit could reach Ali Baka. Ali Baka was furious, and yelled at Ji Luo, "Give me the anesthesia on his body, I will beat him to death." "Calm down, Baka." Yulin's pale face was a bit gloomy. And he scolded softly, then looked at Ji Luo and shook his head, and said slowly, "Ji Luo, you have been dispensing medicine and treating me, so I don't know. The clean water and food on our boat are only the weight of the remaining 2 days is not enough to support the next island. Not to mention, I don't have the eternal pointer to go to other islands in my hand, so I have to go to Carl Island to fully charge the magnet before I can continue to the next island." Advertisement. That's right. It seems that we can only bite the bullet and go to Carl Island. Jiro sighed softly and said helplessly, "My lord, since we can only go to Carl Island, let's go directly there. If the marine dares to block the way, I will sink their warship." Ali Baka casually threw the spy in his hand on the ground, furious said, "I don't believe that marine can dispatch a character who is more powerful than that fat woman in Big Mom." Hearing Ali Baka mention the name, Big Mom, both Aren and Jiro's faces were frightened, and they even recalled the Battle of Kulin Island more than 10 days ago in their minds. The huge and tough body like a steel balloon, the terrifying aura like a demon like a god, and the overwhelming terrifying power like a nightmare existence. Before they met Big Mom, Charlotte Linlin, they never imagined that there are such powerful women in the world. Whether it was guns or cannons, whether it was slashing or devil fruit ability, they couldn't leave even the slightest scar on that terrifying woman's body. It was rumored that the piercing pirates and the Big Mom pirates fought on Kulin Island for a day, but in fact, only those who participated in the main battle knew the real situation. One day was only for the Big Mom pirates to defeat the piercing pirates' time. More than a dozen ships and a large fleet of 10,000 people only persisted on Kulin Island for one day, and half a day of them was desperately procrastinating to buy time for more than a dozen coders, so that 5 pirate ships' coating is complete. As a result, after half a day of coating, the coatings of 4 ships were broken as soon as they entered the deep sea. I've been to Carl Island. It's a big island. Except for Sculpture City, Skokie, other places are virgin forests full of swamps and poisonous insects, or mountains full of wild animals. Find a suitable hidden coast to stop on the back of the island, and it will not be easy to be found. Gritting his teeth, Aren analyzed in a deep voice. Black Arm, Zephyr is basically retired. Marine hero, Monkey D. Garp is in New World. The only active Admiral Sengoku is in Naval Headquarters, Marineford. It is impossible any one of the above 3 people appears. So, the route remains the same, and we still head to Carl Island. We still have a chance. It only needs to be hidden for 2 days, and the record pointer will be able to record the magnetic force to the next island. In addition, after landing, send people into Sculpture City, Skokie in batches to purchase food and water. Don't buy too much at once. Sculpture City, Skokie is a famous city, and there are many outsiders coming and going. We have 2 days to take our time. Remember, the amount is small. Many times.